Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I thank you for tuning on in today as we got ourselves finally a little bit of action, Jackson, a little bit of movement. And that would be, we got a Cooper Kupp coming back in the house. Not the prodigal son returning, but the more hometown kid finally coming back where he belongs. As we got our Yakima son back home at last. Seahawks signing Cooper Kupp to what looks like it's going to be a pretty sizable contract, potentially anywhere in the neighborhood of a 3-year, $45 million deal. And this is going to make many Hawk fans freak out. But before you do that, hit that like button. But before you do that, realize, as I always say, that these numbers are not what they're posted to be at first blush. These numbers are not coming from the team ever when the news is first breaking on any player ever being signed. It's always coming out from the agent. So when you look at the numbers and you go 15 a year and 3-year commitment, it's hold for a second, hold, Braveheart, hold, and then give it that second to let it play out and see where the numbers really line out. And you come to find out, oh, it's only this. It's actually a deal that's actually that. Oh, the team can get out from under this here. And the Seahawks were sitting on a substantial amount of cap space coming into making this move with Cooper Kupp. So I know that the cost is now, some of the numbers were starting to come out. We didn't know initially, are providing a little bit of sticker shock from some Seahawks fans' perspective. I get that. I do understand. But also, they've got the money to spend. It's not going to be as bad as it might look, or the numbers are not going to be as real as they look at first look on this. I think that they'll fit to being much better in the long term of this. And a big part of this being that you're signing with these numbers and that maybe a contender's not coming into this, because that would be a question at hand from some people's perspective. If he's worth this money, why aren't there other contenders out there throwing this money at him? Well, the Rams kind of waited a little bit in their process to release Cooper Kupp. They weren't letting him go way back. They kind of let a little bit of the free agent period go through, some of the money to get burned off the books before they let him out there. So it wasn't going to be necessarily the sizable market he might have had if all things were, necessarily equal on this thing, I guess I should say. But he comes back here to an offense that fits him with a West Coast offense, goes from one style of West Coast offense to another. That is going to fit him well. He can run the routes well that this offense does require. Are there many reasons, or a couple of reasons, the Rams are letting go of Cooper Kupp that are valid as far as to then be concerned about bringing on Cooper Kupp here in Seattle? Absolutely yes. First and foremost, are you getting the same Cooper Kupp of a Triple Crown Award winner from 3 years ago in 2021? No. You're not getting into that same realm of player at this point. That part is to be sure. He is probably a little bit less than he was. But you know what? Tyler Lockett's also been at less than what he was when he had broken his leg. He admitted that himself. Still found a way to be an effective player. And I think that a lot of people are going to look at this and say, well, why just parse the money on from Tyler Lockett to Cooper Kupp? And I understand that Lockett is very much a fan favorite and by no means a bad player at this point. Still capable of playing in this league, going out and getting some catches and some yards. But as far as fit to this particular style of offense and what this offense requires of you, the main things I come back to with Kupp that he has in his bag that I'm not sure that Tyler Lockett has as much in his bag anymore. Contested catch kind of situations, any sort of real yak ability he's going to be able to provide you, and then blocking. I think those are the three main areas as you look at it that he's probably a bit ahead of Lockett. Now, Lockett might have a little bit more speed than him at this point, maybe a little bit better of a route runner at this point with his ability to go laterally, perhaps, maybe. I think even that's a bit in question. But that's where you are getting a bit of a different type of player here and what you're bringing in versus going with Tyler Lockett on almost an equal kind of price point, value on this. And I don't know that it's going to be equal price point value when you consider how they're going to be able to do the structure of this deal over 3 years. Mainly, I think, being able to lower down the first-year cap hit fairly substantially so that it does look more like a deal that's 2 years and blah, 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 and you get out after it at that point and you take a minor little cap hit when you're sitting on a gargantuan amount of cap space. So this is a deal that isn't going to be bad as far as monetarily. He's going to bring a lot to locker room. He fits to the system. Leadership, don't undersell that. You're going to be drafting some young pups in here at the wide receiver position going into the future. Jackson Smith-Njigba may have been here for 2 years, but he's still a young guy in his own right. And so having a guy like this as a veteran presence in there to help out is only going to be also useful for bringing along those players in that locker room. I know fans don't like to hear about that type of stuff because it doesn't feel like it bears out to actual value onto the football field, but it does. Remember once KJ Wright saying he provides $1 million alone of value worth what he's bringing to the locker room. And KJ was sipping at Santa kind of flippantly and just being, quasi funny, quasi serious, but it's quasi true. And that kind of value is a true thing in bringing in. Wide receivers cost a lot. Still the name of the game on this one. If there's one of any kind of value, they do provide that. And even in a down year, quote unquote, last year where he missed a few games, still found a way to be very effective out there as a wide receiver, giving you that inside outside kind of ability. This also gives the Seahawks a better chance to set the table for this upcoming draft in order to be able to now not have to breach for that need. And I think that the big need that you were worrying about here when it came to the wide receiver position was going to be the reach, the double reach, where not only are you having to grab one early, but you were having to grab two early on in a draft where it's not really strong for wide receivers. I want to show you this, and by no means don't take this as my way on this one or my outlook on these wide receivers is the final word. Other people are going to have these guys positioned into different places in this draft and how they look at them, and other may love more or love less. But in general terms, there's a pretty much a consensus out there amongst almost just about everybody that in year after year of getting really good wide receiver drafts, this one is not setting up to be that way. There's not a complete wasteland, tumbleweeds rolling through type of emptiness to it, but it's not anywhere near where we've been at recent history-wise. And as you can see here on my right, over my right shoulder, you can see that we're in my grades right now, I've got 6 wide receivers in the top 2 rounds. Typically, you'd be looking up at more like 10 to 12. You have a stack of guys up in the 3rd round. And again, a lot of those people in the NFL circles are going to have some of those guys in the 4th, 5th. And same thing with the guys in the 4th, even dip lower, maybe a little higher, but I don't think anybody's really elevating many of these guys. And so what I get to at the heart of this is the worst place you can be at in an NFL draft is to not only be reaching for need, but reaching for need at which is what is a weak position. That's where it gets even doubly bad from a Seahawks standpoint of things. And they've been able to, with this signing, with Scandling signing and the role that he's going to fill, and it's a role, it's not a starting role, but a role within this offense he's going to fill, have been able to do this now with these 2 signings and freeing them up to get back to the place you want to be when you walk into an NFL draft. And that is to truly be picking for value, to not be reaching for need at any given time if you can help it, but especially early in the draft. And Seattle would have had to have done that if they hadn't made a signing like this, as the wide receiver room was so thin, especially for any kind of guys that were just even competent. He's going to hit the ground running. Should be a pretty good receiver for us as far as what he does. Helps you out now as far as the draft goes. Makes things make a little bit more sense as far as that receiving room. I'm not saying he's coming in here to be some huge, impactful guy. The other part of this is that Rams fans will tell you, look, there's some of the lateral change of direction abilities, not as much of what it was. And that's also a part of this where maybe he's got still the straight line speed, but he's been robbed by the lower leg injury stuff of that. And we'll see if that is the case. There were some games last year where he looked pretty good to me. There were other games last year where you went, boy, he's looking like he's fighting through an injury or something going on there with his lower leg. Big part of, yes, why the Rams let him go. But guys like this, you never know where their injury situation exactly lies out when it stands. I think a part of why the Rams are moving him too is not just about where he is in his career or the injury or any of that. I think a part of this also comes down to them going to a Devontae Adams is them looking for a true X-type wide receiver on the outside. And in Puka and Koopa, I've thought Puka and Koopa, what is this, Mario Brothers? In Puka and in Cooper, I thought that you have 2 players that are very similar in what they kind of do. Both inside, outside kind of guys a little bit, where there's a mix of that, and you kind of end up a little bit of redundancy with both of those guys on your roster. You have Puka there, who is a younger player, so you're going to probably pivot to that one. That's a bit of this driving force as well, of them just trying to suit the receiving core in better position, rather than having, I think, some of that redundancy, which again doesn't speak then back to how poor Cooper is where he has in a career, or that he's a shell of himself, but more speaks to them just having redundancy, and you now need to get more specialized, like how we've gotten specialized with the Scandling out there, and you have JSN in the slot, and you've got Cooper Kupp now that'll be kind of able to flow between the 2 a little bit and how he'll be able to roll. So it's the way that this offense works, as I've been talking about with the West Coast offense, and I think people will like this, is it's less about, it's nice when you have the stars, don't get me wrong. It's a little bit like quarterbacks. If you have the top 5 guy, it's nice to have. But it's not an offense that's reliant on having the true blue superstar wide receiver out there that's just destroying things. It can make that guy work. It can get the most out of that guy for sure. But it's also one where if you've got to fit it to roles, it can work in that way too. And it can work well in that way too. So this is a little bit of, I think, a step into that direction, just a tiny bit. In other news, in other really great news, and this was one that made me very, very happy to see, we are going to get a reported visit from Teven Jenkins here on Monday with your Seattle Seahawks. And this is a very, very good sign. Smile widely on this one. Does not mean we're signing him imminently, but if you're having a player come in like this, it would typically, as I look on the outside of it, mean when it's not a guy that's bouncing around, let's say, who's been released, and you have 5 teams that all want to pick and prod at him and kind of look at him. But when it's like this, you've gotten through a little bit of free agency. You know he's gone through some negotiations with his agent to other teams. You've been in the mix of that. And now it gets to this kind of point of it. This is the spot where if you're having him come out on a visit, he's flying all the way out. You probably have the numbers in the right spot. You probably come to what I would dare to guess to be a general agreement. You just want to verify you want to both maybe verify that the physicals are right, and maybe perhaps even the agent wants to verify that in the next 2 days, his client doesn't get a better offer on this. But it's a great sign for the Seahawks that he's coming here. It's not just sort of a whatever part of free agent would see where it's still 50-50 as to whether you get him. This increases the odds highly now of Jenkins coming to Seattle to me that this kind of news is coming out. And I find it very encouraging. And this is not a retrospect thing or me going, well, when you walked into free agency, you really wanted, this guy and that guy. And now you're losing on this guy. So you're going to be ultimately just trying to, I'm going to copium, let's say, right? I'm coping up on some secondhand free agent. That is not the case, because anybody that followed my channel here and was looking at this channel when I did my preview of the free agency, and I showed you guys my top 20 free agents, the top 20 guys that I would like to target this offseason, Tevin Jenkins was number 5. Number 5. So going out there and getting Teven Jenkins, going for me, which was the 5th best free agent target out there. And by the way, this was a list of 5 with Trey Smith at the top. So if you take Trey Smith off, this is really a top 4 free agent by how I was sort of targeting this thing. And a left guard at that, which has been so substantially hard, not only for our Seahawks to go and find, but it's hard league-wide to go find a good left guard. Right guards are a dime a dozen. You go down to the baker, you get yourself 12, little maple, little jam-filled, chocolate. Everyone, there's always one guy who wants the chocolate. So you can get those guys anywhere. Left guard, a lot harder to find. And this kid, 26, 27 years old, I think he's going to be turning here shortly. I didn't foresee this being a crazy contract because the injury side is the risky aspect of this. This is why you're having him to come in for the physical. You're going to want to look at that back and look at it very closely to see where he stands and if he can play. But when he has played, he's been a really good player. This is not merely a guy that's been around sort of a league average state. This isn't even a Will Freeze, by the way. So one reason I had this guy ahead of Will Freeze on my list, and I never quite understood the Will Freeze attraction, was that the guy's got like 4 games, and 3 of those teams are crap teams that he played against, or at least crap defenses that he played against. Tevin Jenkins we'll get to the injury stuff in a second, but he's given you 3 years of legitimate play. When he's been on that football field, he's not been just there at like league average. He's not been a star, but if you want to find that quantitative spot between those 2 spots, he's been kind of right about in there and equally measured good as both as a run blocker and as a pass protector, and still young and not super expensive. Now, the injury part is the part that they've got to verify. We'll see with that. But walk with me down this road for a second, where if even the injury was a reality, if that is what we're walking into. So every year with this guy, he's going to give me 13, 14 games a year for the next couple of years, and he's going to play at a well above league average in those 13, 14 games. Can I go pull another player out there to fit in this new NFL reality we live in with 17 games, 2 Thursday night games? Can I find another guard in there to fill for 4 or 5 games? Is a value on a 3-year, $33-ish million deal, and it may be more than this. We don't know with these offensive line contracts. This thing could get crazy. But is it worthwhile to get that productivity of 13, 14 games, which is right about where he's at, by the way? He's had the one rookie year where he was out about half the year, but you remove that off the board and through the rest, at least he's been out there about 75%-ish of the season through those other 3 years. I get that for his level of play at that price, considering where our offensive line has been recently, and most especially considering where that left guard position has been at recently and where it's looking to go into the future of the upcoming season, that would be a huge, huge upgrade for us. And a good signing, a good addition. And much like the Cooper Kupp signing or the Scandling signing, helping to set the stage better for you not to have to pull more towards need as we get into the draft. Because right now, brothers and sisters, you are going to be jumping for need over and over again early in this draft for the interior offensive line as we currently stand. You can't bring in a Jenkins in. It's almost going to be a butt assured. But you land a Jenkins, you take care of the left guard. You still got a tri-stack over there at the right guard between Haynes, Luamea, Bradford. And you even have some guys in at center that you at least feel okay about. Everybody's talking about Bradford right now, and Bradbury, and I don't get it myself. Where I go, look, I'm not even really this sure Bradbury's better than Sundell. And I know that I can go get a center in the 4th, 5th round that's at least probably minimum around where Oluwatimi is, and Oluwatimi is better than Bradbury at this point, so what's the point? I know that Oluwatimi might be is not as much of a pure fit for this scheme, but he's functional until you can get there. Certainly don't spend the money on a guy like that it's the familiarity aspect he has with Sam Darnold. I don't get that approach or that angle of it at all with that one. So you get left guard here, you cement that space. You're still going to go get another one in the draft, don't get me wrong, but it just allows you to be freed back up again to that place where you're drafting for value and not need. So you can go get the best draft class overall. You walk out draft class with the best possible attempt at the most difference makers rather than getting those guys to fill in holes. Remove the holes, get the difference makers. That's the approach to the draft. Tevin Jenkins, though, could be a very key point to this because if you get Jenkins with what you've done in free agency so far, you've not only set that stage, as I'm really hoping they do, but you've also put this offensive line, I think, into a lot better place, even though it's not necessarily the double dip that we had hoped for. It's a single dip. It's a legitimate dip. Jenkins was one of my dip guys. You dipped, you got Jenkins. That's one of my dippers. I wanted the double dip, but that's a dip. That is a dip. And there are still a lot of draft picks in this upcoming draft to both be able to go get another wide receiver, to go get even still a couple of offensive linemen, and still go do a lot more damage there beyond that. So I hope they make this move. I hope we come to find out Monday that they get him in early. They grab the chiropractor and have him rifle around back there, and then they come back on the other side of it, and they give the double thumbs up to John, get the deal done. And now we can start to figure out a little bit better about why they're going which route. And it all does make sense. Whether you agree with it or not, I think that there is a lot that does make sense within this direction of things. And in Jenkins, 26-year-old guy, former, I think still first-round pick, a guy that was a tackle guard convert coming out, so still getting settled in at left guard, may have not yet still seen his best days ahead, especially if he can get healthy, and a good equal opportunity player with both the run and the pass as far as being very, very steady on both of those sides of things. So like where the Seahawks are moving right now in free agency. This is especially coming on the heels of the Lawrence signing. I like to see what they're rolling here with this is helping us to get real talent in here. These are not just guys to me that are just, I know with Cooper Kupp, there could be a look of this, a little bit of being last leg free agents, but I don't think he's that. I certainly don't think Teven Jenkins is that. DeMarcus Lawrence has, last year, he has his injury on the foot last year, but aside from that, he's been a pretty healthy player and he's rolled along pretty good. And again, we know that with guys of his body style and type, even at this age going into their mid-30s, have still been able to continue on and play really well at a really even semi-high level at times. We have seen, and DeMarcus Lawrence types of these kind of builds. He's maybe not quite the freak show Lawrence was, or DeMarcus Ware, not Lawrence. I combined them up, but DeMarcus Ware, this kind of guy, another former Cowboy who was able to go to the Broncos and be really effective for the Broncos for a couple of years, still had a little bit more gas left in that tank. I could see a very similar thing here with Lawrence in fitting in here to Seattle. So I like where they're going. I'd love to hear where you guys are at with it. I know I say this often, but I got some plans on in this evening, but I did want to go live tonight and have a little bit of discussions with you guys. I was seeing some live discussion out there on Twitter, people a little bit all over the map here on the Cooper Kupp signing, which was, I would expect nothing less than the Seahawks fandom at this point. So I don't think there's anything bad in that at all. I love that to see that just livens up, I should say, the debate. I thank you guys for watching today. If you could for me, please hit that like button. As you know, it helps this channel grow, and we were making some great traction this last week. Love seeing all the new people hop aboard here. If you're looking for some Cooper Kupp thoughts, if I do get the question on that one today, if you just posted in a donation or not on the Cooper Kupp thing, I did just post a video to the channel with a little 6-minute breakdown of where my thoughts kind of stand on him and the edition as a whole, of course, on top of what my soliloquy to open up the show today. I thank you guys for watching. Let's pop right over to you guys here. Like I said, it's going to be a quick one, so I just want to see where you guys are at. Megan, thank you for hopping back on as a Hawks Nest Pro Bowler. Appreciate you. Dogzilla, hello. Alan, Lethal, what's up, what's up? Tommy, Joe, hello. Joe says, crazy week. Like where the team's headed? I do too. I'm feeling it. Feeling it. Skylar, hello. Sean, Mike. Yo, 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 yo. Eaglet, Snupper, thank you for the $2 donation. All this drama. Those bastards got me excited again. Yeah, indeed. It's they've gotten people back to a little interesting, you know. You got a Hawk fan, you know, Gino DK traded. Hell with them. Hell with them. Seahawks signed Lawrence. No. Should have kept Gino DK. You can't do this. It's just you don't do that. You don't. Seahawks signed Cooper Kupp. What? What was that? Cooper Kupp. No, it's still not alignment. Still not alignment. It's a bad offseason. It can't work. No. I'm out. Tevin Jenkins coming to Seattle on Monday. What? just when I'm out, they pull me back in. The way it goes for us, man. That they toy with our emotions. They toy with our emotions. Naveen says, you think we could be contenders next year, or do you think Sammy D will hold us back? I don't think we're going to be sitting in any way, shape, or form in a state of where I would like to be as far as to be able to give you an answer on this question where I'm like, yeah. Which is, I think contenders are ones where you don't really have to ask the question, you just kind of know it. Could we be a team that kind of rises up and can be that shocker a bit like the Vikings were this year and you make noise in the regular season, threaten for the playoffs, and then who knows what happens in the playoffs? You could be that kind of team for sure this year. I don't think, though, you'll ever materialize into some true blue form, and that's mainly because, Naveen, you've taken that step back this year. Rather than really pedal this thing down to the metal, you reorganized and reshuffled. And as far as Sammy holding us back, the place that I come to in my mind of the spot that would really stand to me, it's kind of two places to me with Sam Darnold. I think that would be the main two places. I don't know for sure on this stuff, but this is a general instinct I have. Number one, if I got to ask Sam Darnold to be Geno and taking us back from behind in the fourth quarter with a fourth quarter comeback and all the chips are on the line and bump and a bump and a bump, I don't know that I'm really all too sure there that I can trust him in those situations. I think that's remains to be seen kind of situation ask there. The other part is the pressure, and that's the main part about it, is he needs a clean pocket. He just needs a clean pocket, bottom line. And if you don't give him that, and we haven't given our quarterbacks that here in a whole long time, then I do see at that point that it's a bit of Sammy holding you back. Now, he's not holding you back purely there. It's just that you're raising to bear there the worst attributes that he brings to the table. You know, rather than minimizing it and kind of putting it below the water, you're kind of pulling it right on up. And so that's where I would be having my main concerns on that one. But the defense is going to come forward next year. I think that the special teams can play only better next year overall, though we are heading into a Mr. Hyde season of Jason Myers. Those who know. But we'll see how it goes. There's a possibility of it, Naveen. They've got a lot of young talent on this team. We're a few years removed from the Russell Wilson trades. Guys like Kenneth Walker going into a season where he'll be a free agent, Mafe and all of that, and Murphy's second-year returns. I mean, you've got some talented stock in here. It's about it maturing and getting the full fruits of that coming forward. And that could happen at any time. As we saw with Jackson Smith and Jigba's explosion last year, you never know when a prospect's going to blow or when he's going to bunk. Blow or bunk, you don't ever know for sure. And that's the hard part to predict, but that's what it would take. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $20 donation. Mark, I appreciate you for that, my man. Very kind of you. Very kind of you. Before signing Kupp, D-Law, MVS, I gave this offseason as a C-. But since then, I'd give it a B-. However, if we sign Jenkins on Monday, I think it'll be an A-. If Jenkins signs on Monday, then we don't have to reach in the draft. Go Hawks. Well said, Mark. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. I can't actually put it any better. That is kind of about where my place stands on this, is that you look at the free agent class in totality. You don't ever just look at it day one. It is always day one where we get nervous with Seattle because they're just not much of a wave one team in that way. And so they tend to be a bit patient. And in the past, they've been patient, and the results have been horrific, to put it lightly. That we have had to satiate ourselves on the likes of Benson Mayowa, Cedric Obuhi. This is a bit removed from that. Yes, part of this is the Kupp name, Lawrence name, but these guys are also still players that can go out there on Sunday and help you win. It is not just merely your running out skeletons of the past. And MVS last year was as effective, efficiently, as he has been ever throughout his career with the Saints when he came aboard to them. So I find it the same way. Jenkins would be a perfect chess piece to add to this team. That left guard, and he's a pure left guard, and he's the tackle conversion, and he's a guy's going to have mobility for the position, and he's wide as three men stacked shoulder to shoulder. And yes, the health stuff's the part that's the question on it, but look, there's going to be some risk. And the good part of the health thing, at least with it, is that you've got a bit of the boom bust aspect of it with that, but then you've also got the part of it too, where this is where he's not going to come in at the Will Freeze 5-year, I wouldn't think. I should preface this. I don't know that for sure at this point. This thing's going buck wild when it comes to the lines, but I wouldn't think that injury situation would allow him to get quite that same contract, even though I know that's kind of ironic because Freeze is technically coming back from the tibia, the broken tibia. But well said, Mark, and go Hawks. And I would feel the very same way. It's one of my top free agents. It's one of my top gets. Would have loved to double dip, but I understand, look, they tried with Dahlman. He wanted to go somewhere else. They probably offered more money. He wanted to go somewhere else. Ain't crying over spilt Dahlman. I'm good. Whatever. We'll pivot, baby. Pivot. A, B, C, D, E. Just as long as we get it dealt with. And the more you can get dealt with to the draft, the better. And I think that they are doing as much as they can in that way, which is good to see. Very good to see. Throwhouse is the double reach around. That's also another name for it. John S. says, I guarantee the Kupp family is extremely happy right now. Go Hawks. Should have been here from the jump, man. Should have had him targeted from the jump. You don't let somebody in your backyard. It's like you're an NFL scout. And you're in your neighborhood, and you're like in your backyard, and you're going out there and you're grilling in the summer, and you're looking over, and the neighbor's kid's out there, and he's doing like wide receiver drills at 12. You know, he's got the little ladder doing the little step drill. And you're like watching him every day, and he's got his dad out there just whistling piss missiles into his hand. Just, and it's like 17. He's out there with the jugs now. He's like graduated beyond that. You know, now it's to Jug City. He's out there with 200 jugs a day. You're just over there drinking beer, grilling again. You know, like, wow, that neighbor's kid. We might want to look at him, huh? Goes to college, tears the roof off. 6,000 yards receiving or something in his college career. Nah, we don't think he's an NFL receiver. I'm not saying it went exactly like that, but it's almost kind of like that. That might have been me shortening some things up on that whole process, but history will show it's that, pretty much. Addis's tight end is definitely a possibility now too, and of course you can still get Grant. And another corner, yes sir. All those positions I would say are highly likely targets. And you start getting a lot more happier about targeting a tight end in a class that has the best tight end class in maybe 20 years, as opposed to targeting 2 wide receivers in a draft class of wide receivers that may be as weak as about that one we had a couple of years ago, where it's kind of like, AI thinks Savion needs to be pushed up. I might by the time we get to the draft. As I always say, AI, I'm subject to change right up until the last day on this. The evaluation, I'm in evaluation mode, and I've got another 6 weeks. So I still got my time. And one of the things I do with this list of AI is it's never about just staying on the first 1 or 2 times you go to them. It's really trying to mix back up as you go back and look at guys as you're looking at others to try to really pinpoint in where they should go. But I do have them at the top of the third, and if you were to take them at the top of the second, then within that would not be a big time reach at all for where the Hawks are picking there in the second round in either of their 2 spots. Jeff says, I always liked Kupp. It's not my money, and we still have lots. You had a lot of money to spend coming into this day. When I looked over the cap right now, you don't have the final numbers released out of the Geno Smith deal. They do have the Ernest Jones contract on the books. They do have the Jaron Reed numbers on the books. So you're missing about 3 contracts there, which will lower this number substantially. But when I look right now, and if you go to over the cap right now, the Seattle Seahawks had the 3rd most amount of cap space, absent those deals being added on to it. So this is going to lower you down a bit. You're certainly not there now as far as it goes, but that's where you were kind of standing. So there was, I'm not going to say money to burn, but there was money to spend. Killer Way, I take Cooper Kupp healthy all day than DK. If he is healthy, it's especially in this offense, it's a better fit. You know, I hate getting rid of DK. I hate it being an either-or thing, but he's also coming in at a much cheaper rate. It's different players, different parts of their career, kind of different things they bring to the field. Dude says, why do I feel like we need a long corner? As long as the rest of the team comes together, I think we forgot how lazy Reek can be. Long corner is a possibility. We haven't gotten a great opportunity to really get locked in on the corner types that McDonald likes. I mean, we know that with Carroll, that certainly is something he gravitated towards. But certainly in DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett last year, you weren't exactly looking for either really great size or really great length. Nehemiah might be like 6'1"-ish or something, but he's not super long. I know that. But we'll learn a little bit more on that Doom Moose this year, because I think it becomes more of a priority this year with you not trotting back the number of corners you had coming back last year as you were stacked pretty healthy. Brennan wants to smell Sam Dean's hair. Mike Skinner. Brandon, what's your scouting grade on Trey Harris? I will show you right here. I got the receivers rank here on my board thing. So Trey Harris, I've got in the 3rd round just behind Savion Williams. But I have him just ahead of Alec Ionamore, who other people have up in the 2nd round. I more have gone back and watched Alec Ionamore, and some of it sucks because it's just the Stanford offense. It's like limited route tree they have them running. They're always so damn balanced. Always so damn balanced out there with the Cardinals. I want a Cardinal coach to come in there and be a little pass happy for one damn time. But Trey is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. In many ways, I ain't going to say that, he made the Mississippi offense run because, of course, that would have been more, obviously, of going to Dart. But he's a big part of what helped Dart. He's Dart's main guy out there. I actually have a kind of an interesting comp for him, which is, you don't always see this kind of comp, I would say. But my comp for Trey Harris is Alec Pierce, the Indianapolis Colts wide receiver. The kid, I think, who came out of, Cincinnati a couple years ago? Was that right? I think he was out of Cincinnati. He's got kind of that angular AJ Green kind of receiver build that you like. You like those receivers to be that kind of archetype because they just look like they can be body control artists and they can swerve in the open field at full speed. And it's very easy for them kind of with that build. I don't know why, it just feels that way. He's a physical X receiver with explosive strides up the field and refined route running. Easy hands, large catch radius, and ability to sky. He'll attack the ball in the air like it owes him money. He runs tough with the ball in his hands and won't go down easy. He's got a stiff arm and he will lower his head on contact. Almost feeds off of physical coverage. He only played 8 games last year, but he had over 1,000 yards to go with 3,545 career yards and 29 total touchdowns. He's a beast. Capable as a blocker, but not overwhelming. He'll do just enough. I said he looks about a mid 4.4 guy on tape with a good 10-yard split. And I don't think we got... I don't think that we got his combine stuff. I don't think that he ran. No, he did. So I said, I was on it, man. No, I wasn't. So I said he looks mid 4.4s. So that part I was off. He's a 4.54 40 guy. So I was a little off there. I'd say low 4.4s, but mid 4.4. No, that is mid 4.4s, isn't it? 4.54 is good. No, because I'm 4.5, so a little higher than that. But he was a 1.56 10-yard split. So good 10-yard split, good burst up the field for bringing that area. And I like his game. 3rd-round guy, just behind Savion Williams. Not as much the yak guy, but he's going to be a route runner who gets open. If you look at his yards per route run, for so many wide receivers in this draft, they're going to be very low, a lot of bubble screens and whatnot, drag routes, little just short throws into space. He actually is running pure routes. His yard per run route's like 2 yards over just about any other prospect you're going to look in this draft as far as at that wide receiver position, especially some of the slot guys. So Trey's a fun player. Health is the big concern with him with only playing the games, but if everything's good to go there, I think he is a solid, talented guy. He's a little bit to me like Jaden Higgins in that these guys' upside may not be huge as far as the ceiling, but the floor is going to be pretty good. You're going to feel pretty happy with that, where they should come in, immediately be able to play to the X role, which is a hard role to find, and be competent in that role. Are they going to light the world on fire? Are they going to be up there as a top 10 wide receiver at any time in their career? Probably not. But are they going to get the job done over on the outside, especially for a team that's going to more lean to run the football? Yes. Yes, sir. Fun player. Get caught up in a couple of these donos. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind the bow here. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. Chances of Jones replacing one of our jackasses? Chance of Jones replacing one of our jackasses? I don't know. I'm not sure on that question. Sometimes I'm a little slow on that, Dogzilla. I'm not sure what you mean. You put that if you can in the chat on what you meant by that. I'm not sure. Maybe? Perhaps? MJA Dason McLean, thank you for subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate you jumping up and joining aboard. Please do join up and hop aboard like Dason and MJ have. Subscribing up to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $2 donation. Would Bradbury be an upgrade over Olu? How's the PFF? Olu was sitting somewhere in the neighborhood of about 19th last year as far as your PFF goes and his rank versus other centers in the NFL, Randall. And then Bradbury was about 27th as far as his ranking goes. Just another reason why I'm very, very low on him coming out there is I just don't see a guy that I'm even altogether that sure is really going to give you an upgrade beyond Sundle. And if you're not as confident in Sundle, and this team is just about as effusive talking about Sundle as any player in their ranks, then there's plenty of centers in this draft that you don't have to give up prime draft capital who can come in and be a guy that, to me, just about every bit can match that Olu sort of performance at about right around the 20th level in the sport. I think Connor was like 17th or so, Randall, last year in his rank, but there's about a 9-space difference. I looked at it yesterday. There's a 9, and it's PFF, so take it with a grain of salt, but there's a 9-spot difference between Olu and Bradbury last year. And look at what the Vikings are doing too, which is, I think, an indicator where they're moving on with this to an older player in Ryan Kelly. I think that speaks a little bit to where Bradbury's at. And Olu's not an answer, but I think he at least gives you a floor for the position that you can feel pretty good about, to where you don't have to go for another floor that's lower than his floor, which is, I think, what you're kind of doing then at that point with Bradbury, especially with where Bradbury's age at, and it's going to be a short-term deal. I'd much rather try to draft one of these collection of 4th, 5th round centers. Everything from Seth McLaughlin to Jake Majors, Bryce Foster, Cooper Mays, Drew Kendall, Go back to the Kendall family again here. I mean, that's like a 5th round guy you can get who could probably come in and probably maybe give you play right where Bradbury is. Jonah Monheim, guy at USC. I mean, all these guys are 4th, 5th round guys to me, Randall. And so just go that route instead. And you don't have to give up money to do it because it's going to cost you probably $3 or $4 million on a 1-year deal, short-term deal on Bradbury to get it done as well. There's not a lot there. And there's not a lot there with Bradbury. Randall McDaniel, thank you for another $5 donation. Let's say we sign Jenkins, go into the draft really focusing on BPA with an eye on interior offensive line. With what we've done in free agency, I think we're neck and neck with LA. It's hard to say, Randall, because there's got to be a development of the offensive line that's got to come along for us to get to where LA is at. And LA is at where they're at. They don't have to come into this offseason saying we have to take this step forward. In many ways, you had that Eagle team somewhat close to the brink on the road in Philadelphia in a cold environment in a game you probably should have had no business being that close within. So from LA's standpoint, they can say not only have we been to 2 Super Bowls over the last few years, not only have we had playoff success over the past couple of years, but we're pretty locked in with what we built up here and how we've drafted and how we've developed. Whereas with us, I think the big part that stands out is that we are resetting our receiving core and we're going to have to rebuild our offensive line on the inside, especially, not to mention hope that a guy like Abraham Lucas is going to be able to maintain his health through the course of a whole season. You've gotten a little bit of depth with Jones, and maybe Mike Jarrell can come forward in his development too. But this does speak to then we need more of these things going forward. LA is going to trot out their same offensive line from last year. Kyron Williams, Adams is, I think with them, there's a big question on health on age. Adams and Stafford, Randall, where it's like, well, they definitely are one minor hit away. Stafford's case, one drop back away and his Achilles heel blowing out, as seems to be happening on some of these older quarterbacks lately. So there is a bit of that risk, because if you lose kind of either of those two guys on this one with the way they've set their stage, they're definitely on a tightrope act with that just a little bit there, Randall, on that side of it. But there's no reason that we couldn't if things do break right in our way. If some of that development from the youngsters does come along and they are able to get this draft hit in the right way and hammer it out of the park and get some instant returns on top of hammering it out of the park, yeah, you could be right there with LA. The talent is true and real at that point. It's just really about, you never know with young talent always then when it is going to come forward. It can be very highly unpredictable and volatile when it comes to that, in good ways, like Jackson was last year, where you're going, okay, well, we're not sure after about a year through 3 games, he's good, but is he first round receiver? Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. That's why, yeah. Oh, yeah, no. He's a first round receiver. That makes a lot of sense now. So a bit of that can go on and happen. You can see Boye Mafe comes up, becomes that 13 sack guy. Kenneth Walker goes out there and hits that 1,500 yard season. You know, these development points come forward in a big way. But Jenkins would be huge for taking you there, Randall, because now that retooling and rebuilding of the offensive line looks a little bit less on you relying on young talent, which is recipe, if not for disaster, a little bit of inconsistent play at the very least, to now you have something a little bit more solidified, especially that left guard spot that's so hard to hunker down. God's Gang, thank you for the $5 donation. What if they just load up on D-line in the draft? Get some serious rotation like what we had with the Legion of Boom era. I could see McDonald doing that. It certainly is a possibility. I think this is where the Kenneth Grant thing comes into play big time too. And I do think with a nose tackle, anything is in alignment on that as far as any spot on this draft is a possibility for them picking that position from 1st through the 5th round, because there's a variety of nose tackles in this draft, including Grant, which you don't rarely have nose tackles in the 1st round. But that one stands out to me. I would say that it would probably be a little surprising to me to see them go after any of the 3 techs in this draft. I just don't, it's possible it happens, but I would find it very shocking. You're 3 deep as that position as it stands right now. Not to mention, you have a guy in Lawrence who probably can kick inside occasionally on passing downs as a 3 tech himself. So that's a guy that can kick in there. There are really good 3 techs in this draft, all peppered throughout, but that would be the one place where I would say on that, I don't know if they would be, if in a bit of the inference there, God's gang, if they would be as much rolling into that direction of things with that. Now, edge, that's another one where it becomes a little bit tough, much like the 3 tech, where you've got Breece Hall, you've got Boye Mafe, Lawrence is in the house, and you still have Uchenna Nwosu here. So you're 4 edges deep right now. There's been years where you don't even carry 5 edges. So do you make a second, third round pick that you really like Donovan Ezerike out of Boston College, and you grab him like the second round and then have him as that 5th edge rusher just to get it that deep versus taking the offensive lineman? I think if they did, I'll say this, God's gang, if they go that direction, that would very much speak to the conviction they had about that prospect as that edge or as that 3 tech, because they are so stacked there. You'd need to be, really swayed in a major way there to want to make that run. So I will say it on that side, but it's going to be a pretty deep line as it stands. They've already taken some pretty, as far as equivalency goes, and as far as investment to equivalency goes, we may have even more invested into this defensive line dollar for dollar equivalency wise. And I'm not talking about the inflationary, but percentage of the cap of this defensive line and what it's taking up, the draft picks that it's taking up versus what we put into the Legion of Boom as defensive line. I think you've put even more into it as we stand here right now with the Leonard Williams and second round pick plus $20 million and the first round pick for Byron Murphy and your 2 second round picks on the edges and two reasonably big contracts and Lawrence and Uchenna Nwosu. Jaron Reed with another decent contract in there at the 3 tech on top of that. I think you're kind of close on there, at least as far as investment goes, but you never know. They could still take it beyond that. That's for sure. Juan Adame, thank you for the $5 donation, Juan. Kupp adds third down help, red zone help, and great blocking. Love it. I do too. I think he does provide all of those things. There was one year where there was so many of his catches that were first down catches that he was getting. They used to call him in LA third down and Kupp because he was so automatic on those third downs. And is he in the same place? Probably not, but still a guy that is just got so much savviness when it comes to running through zone coverage and the timing of it and how to set up routes. And it's not just a guy who's ever been really reliant on pure physical skill and what he does anyway. It's been a little bit in that ability to cut at the right time and to feel physicality and coverage and pivot off of it at the right time. But he also provides that blocking. Red zone help is an important one too. It's not just in like a typical one with a receiver where you'd say, well, does he run like a fade route down there? It's like, no, it's more of like he'll be in motion, break off motion, hit into a tight route, going up laterally, and then you hit him at the pylon. They're out of play action, for instance, something like that. And he's very good in that way. Can work some off-script stuff too. We know with Darnold that he can do some of the off-script stuff within his bag of things, and that is something with Kupp you don't see as much of it with Stafford because he's kind of an on-time guy with that, but he can do that stuff too on top of it, and the blocking is not to be undersold. And it's something that's been absent, maybe DK at times, not as big a part of our receiving core here in recent memory as their blocking ability. And if you're going to run to the edges, if you're going to run outside zone, going to go out to that edge, guess who becomes the front man? Guess who becomes that lead blocker then at that play? That outside wide receiver on that outside corner. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation, Randall. Says, defense got better. Sam, an upgrade over Geno. O-line can only get better with new scheme and coaches. Throw in top 5. Throw in 5 top. Excuse me. Hold on 1 second, Randall. Two seconds, please. Throw in 5 top 100 players. That was a mouthful. From the draft, and I am hyped up. Well, I'm glad to hear you are hyped up. Having these 5 players in this top 100 like that, don't think that that's not going to inject in some rocket fuel into this team. It certainly did a couple of years ago when we had all those picks between Cross and how we rolled in that draft, that one alone with the 2 second rounders and what those guys provided to that team, Lucas, Walker, Wolin, Bryant. What did we get out? How did they help out those team that was very, very lean at that time? So I love to hear you're hyped up, Randall, and you should be. As I've wanted to say with this team, it ain't about doing the moves I exactly want to see. It's about doing the moves that you can just at least can make sense from an intelligent standpoint as to why they're making the moves. Where you're not going, what are they doing? Why would they even do that? What sense does doing that thing make? And there's a lot of teams in the NFL, I think, that to their fans, when they make those kind of moves, including even ourselves here in recent years at times, especially in free agency, where we have said that. What are they doing? What? Why would you do that? Don't do that. Stop that. Stop that. Nope. Don't do it again. But that kind of feeling this year, as far as I've approached or looked at free agency from my perspective of things. But 5 top 100 players in this draft. Boy, does it feel good to say. Now the question comes in, how good does it make me feel? How good does it make me feel? Wait, what the hell?
And me being as broke as I am, I'm about to find a way to treat my alignment to Sizzler.
Go with Sizzler. We go with Sizzler.
We going to Sizzler. That's what that feels like for me, baby. That's what getting the top 5 picks feels like for me, is we're going to Sizzler. Like Marshawn used to say about his offensive lineman. Only we got a lot of money to spend. And we got our draft picks. We're going to Sizzler, baby. Let's go. Thank you to Randall. Randall with another $2 donation. Two $2 donations. Thank you for that, Randall. Says, everyone in Yakima is pumped for the hometown kid. Well, Randall's our resident guy out there in Central Washington, so I'm sure they are hyped through the moon out there. The bars in Central Washington are going to be off the hook this year, if they're not already on game day. Be bursting at the seams every time Kupp catches a catch. Kupp! You love it, man. You love the hometown kids coming home, don't you, Randall? We can always go home. Randall also says, Kupp's dad played quarterback in the NFL. Grandpa was an NFL O-lineman. Always love the lineage, too, don't you? Those kids that are children of players and stuff, it tends to be a good thing. We've even got players in this draft that we gravitate towards, like a Mason Taylor in this draft, because he's got those same lines. And, got a little bit of a connection back in there on that side of it, which is kind of cool with Kupp. And I'll tell you what, he's had a hell of a career. It's no small feat to be a Triple Crown winner in the NFL. This happened last year with Jamar Chase, but it's happened very rarely in the NFL. It is not something that a lot of receivers can attain. And I know that this isn't the same Kupp that we have now. I get that. There'll be those people, he's not the same. Stop bringing up Triple Crown. It's 2021. He's not again, we're not trotting him out there into a wheelchair or a walker. He's not going to be out there with tennis balls under his walker. The guy can still get some things done out there from the receiver position, absolutely. Northwest 12, thank you for the $5 donation. It says, what is your cat's name? We got to get him some Hawks gear for good luck. Tried to put her in a Hawks onesie once, and I almost bled out. So it was, I learned that she's not much for wanting costumes. So, my arteries have told me that I'm no longer allowed to put anything on her, though you're right. She would have a level of cuteness that would just be about unable to be fully calibrated if I put something like that on her. But her name is Pumpkin, and she is a very lovely kitty. She's our mascot here, and she's always riding shotgun next to me, aren't you? Yeah, you're a good girl. She's a girl. She's had plenty of salmon today, though, and lots of treats. No, that was not an invitation. You're going to hang out. But I appreciate that, Northwest 12. She's a good girl. And she's my co-pilot here. Really, a lot of people just come for the cat. They put up with me. Yeah, don't they? They put up with me, but they like you. You're the real draw here. Real Cheese, thank you for the $5 donation. Asks, how crazy would it have been to draft quarterback next year, pay JSN and DK, and let that rock till the quarterback's contract came up? What kind of cap balance would it need? Well, thank you for the donation on that. Well, with DK, it would seem that we're hearing he's getting a 5-year, $30 million a year deal. So you're going to have to probably come up and hit that mark of it if you want to sign him back into it. We have not gotten Geno Smith's contract coming off the books yet with the Raiders, but I have to say that I'm not going to go on full on collusion here, but you can't tell me that Geno and Coach Carroll didn't have some offline conversation in the prior couple of weeks where basically Carroll told Geno that he was going to blow him out of the water, whatever Seattle throws you. And they probably were able to predict the fact that the Seahawks were going to come in at the offer they came in at. And Carroll was probably like, here's what you're going to do. You play it up to where like they either lowballing you so you don't even come back with a counter offer. And then we just are sitting here with the $45 million per year offer we'll give you on a 4-year extension. And Seattle was never going to come close to those numbers. They were probably never going to come close to the 4th year. So that's where within this deal, I think a little bit of that has to be considered about this, not just being merely that Seattle like insulted Geno on his contract offer. The part that he didn't come back with a counter offer is a very important part of this structure, and to me speaks to the collusion that was at play. Not that I'm saying that it's like poor, bad, don't get this wrong. I'm saying collusion in the way of it's all fair game. Every NFL team's doing this. Carroll didn't do anything out of pocket. Geno didn't do anything out of pocket. It's just the way that this game plays. It's just the way that it rolls. So, that's the bottom line of it is I wouldn't have ever wanted to go to a 4th year. I wouldn't have ever wanted to go to $45 million per year. Those are funny money numbers. I certainly would have done that with DK, but where that would have put you from a contractual standpoint, real cheese, is you're at pretty much the top of the market on both those guys for where you would have theoretically been paying them. And so they're taking up the per year is going to change a bit on this because the first year you're maybe going to save a little bit of money. But the key on that is if you save a little bit of money early on those 2 years deals or those new deals on the first year, for instance, year 2, year 3 now go up so exponentially up. Now you have the cap space into next year and beyond to do whatever you wanted. You could have signed a Geno at the 45, you could have signed a DK at the 30 and rolled on to the future and still built a winner that way. And like you said, gone and drafted a quarterback this year like a Jackson Dart in the first round and maybe made it work. It's another route that they could have gone that they could have found success with. But that's also one of the parts I say that we can't understate here with it, that both of these two players said that they wanted to not be here. And you can blame that on Seattle for it. In DK's case, you can say they never used him right. They never got the most out of him. I mean, it's all that very well may be valid as far as reasoning of it. But then the bottom line of that was that they just didn't want to be here. And so if that's the case on that, that's the driving structure beyond how you were going to put together your cap into future years. And so you go this direction of it. I do think a part of this, though, is that I don't think that John is as bad at his job as getting completely caught off guard this year. I know how the whole situation plays out with him on 710 yesterday talking about this, okay? So I know that this runs a bit counter to his wording on 710, but I don't buy that he walked into this offseason completely blindsided by the Geno and DK thing. I think they were softly pushing it in the background in their own manner to make it happen. I think that they wanted this end result. I think Mike McDonald, as a new head coach, probably wanted this end result, all things being considered. I don't think that they can come out there and tell you that. I think that there'd be a little bit of backlash if they just did that versus saying he didn't want to be here. It's a lot easier to come back to the fans and say, well, he didn't want to be here. Well, he didn't want to be here because we didn't want to pay him. And we didn't want to pay him because we'd like to do a different way of putting this team together. But that's a harder sell to fans versus just saying, well, didn't want to be here on the side of it. So, we had to roll this way with it. And so it's complex, right? Real cheese. But you could have done it because you had the cap space. Could you have built the offensive line around that after drafting that quarterback? Well, that's where it gets tougher. You don't have the draft returns from DK and Geno. You're probably then using that first round pick for the Jackson Dart because in your proverbial scenario, we'd probably go get a quarterback. Now you're left with that second and third round pick to probably have to go find those linemen who probably then have to be immediate starters. You get a Teven Jenkins, but then you can still pull that deal off, certainly. But then you probably still are needing to find a couple of guys within this draft on top of that. With those deals you made, going for it now, being a team trying to drive for the 25 season to be that contending type team. And that's what I think made the team a bit nervous in this, is that they could see how that could work, but they could also see the big chance of how that could fail. And that became, I think, a bit of an overriding driver of this whole situation. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $20 donation. Mark, I appreciate the double dip $20 drop. Very kind of you. He says, just to think, I watched Kupp play high school against my younger bro. I simply saw a kid that had on bigger pads than he needed and had no muscle tone to speak of. I never thought he would make it into college, let alone the NFL. There's always a part that I always wondered about, and I think Kupp is a guy that is definitely the type of guy that is this type of player with this. Doug Baldwin is a little bit of this type of player, I think a little bit too with this. Though Doug probably had a little bit more of that initial, like really great first step quickness kind of athletic ability. But, you wonder at times in watching some of these guys in the NFL and the guys that get there is that who are those will guys, Mark, right? Who are the guys that sheer will of force, they're going to sit there and they're going to run that ladder in their backyard. Footsteps. Wind sprints. Catching ball after jaw. Hey, Mom, I don't want an Xbox this Christmas. I want a jugs machine. Who are those players? As we know in this a very, very competitive country we live in to become a football player, and the minute amount of players that can become pro NFL players, say nothing of the small amount to become college football players, and the work you have to put in, the bit of extra you have to do. How far one's will can take oneself if they don't naturally have the natural physical ability of some of those guys that can get by on that, before they maybe have some of the technique and refinement and fundamentals down or whatever, on that. And Kupp, I think, is a bit of an embodiment of that kind of guy. The guy over my right shoulder, Steve Largent, was one of the reasons that he was one of my favorite players of all time growing up. Was I was the kind of kid that was not a fast kid. I loved sports and loved to play sports, and I'd be out there with everybody else doing all that, playing tackle football in the streets. That we loved it. But at the same point in time, couldn't jump, couldn't run, could catch, didn't have a strong arm. You watch guys like a Largent, or you see guys like, in this way that they're getting by with that sort of sheer will of force kind of a way, or that they have refined themselves so much with their talents, whatever talent that they're given, that they're taking their talent that should have put them here, but their will of force is taking them there. And I think Kupp is a bit of that embodiment in a lot of ways. And as I said, I think Doug Baldwin was that same kind of way, where Doug just said, I am going to bust my ass. I am not going to back off an inch of my work ethic on this. And it ain't the Instagram shots you ever get to see, but it's happening. It's going down. These guys are doing all of it. And in this day and age, especially, play back in the 50s, you can go out there and smoke packs of cigarette and have a beer in the off season, mow your lawn, and that's your exercise for the day. Now you're in a day and age where you have to have almost stuff, I think, structured in your off season. It's like half the day's on film. This day's on working out and lifting. The afternoon's going to be out doing route running and sprints. The evening we'll do our lateral drills and we'll do our calisthenics, or something. But he's as much made himself as anybody else. And if you want to talk about a guy that if he does lose a little bit of juice as far as that speed or whatever, who can fall back along that refinement that he's built up and the work ethic there to make sure that he's, on those P's and Q's of what he can control, this is a guy that can do that. But I do wonder about that, Mark, with some of these guys in the NFL. And who was the guys that were those guys that their talent should have never have gotten them there, but they just said, I'm going to make it happen. I always remember a Charles Woodson story similar along these lines back in the day of him speaking about this, where he says a younger kid who, wasn't fast. And then he just, like Forrest Gump, was going to run everywhere. And he was just going to run fast as he could. And he was going to make it happen, and eventually made himself fast, essentially. Never was naturally so that way. You love those kind of stories of those kind of guys, because it also speaks to their love of the game and their want of it, doesn't it? Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the big donation. Connor Wilson says, with the $2 donation, when was the last time we had a good white wide receiver? Steve Largent? No. And by the way, the Bo Bros, Connor, are coming for you. I'm not sending them for you, okay? I'm not sending them for you, but I can hear them coming over the hill. They're shouting over the hill. They're probably carrying some pitchforks for you. So I'm just letting you know that right now, Connor, okay? In reality, the last good white wide receiver that we had was a one-year wonder, a one-year flyer, a one-hit wonder, with one of the hardest names you're ever going to see in the NFL. Joe Vicious Joe Jurvicious. What a year he had in 2005. A guy who had kind of a whatever NFL career up until that point. Came to Seattle as a guy that was just kind of an extra addition onto the scene for a receiving core that was kind of a lot of, like our receiving core here, kind of a lot of parts kind of put together from various different places. You know, a little bit of DJ Hackett, a little bit of Bobby Ingram, a little bit of Darrell Jackson. Here comes Joe Jurvicious, little Jeremy Stevens with the tight end position. You're kind of putting it together that year. And Joe Jurvicious was great. Big guy, 6'3", 6'4", could go up and get it. Another guy, not a lot of speed, you know. Stop me if you heard that one before. Slow white guy. But guy was a baller, great blocker, great contested catcher was Joe Jurvicious, and he had a hell of a year in that final year here before he went on to Cleveland and signed a free agent contract. And a big part of helping us get to that Super Bowl was his presence. Would have loved to have been able to bring him back. I think it was a big loss to lose him out of the receiving core after that year in 2005. But that was the last one. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. Is it possible that inside is ideal for Murphy? Byron Murphy inside? The nose tackle position is what you're saying, Dogzilla? I think is what you're saying for Byron Murphy. So the question is, I believe, would be, is nose tackle, one tech, the ideal position for Byron Murphy? And the answer for that is no. No. He's a 300-pound body, number one. You'd like a bigger guy in there. A big part of the one tech Dogzilla, as Bill Belichick used to reference it, is having the big backside guys that are real wide in there, you know, where it becomes to now where not only the double team guy has to deal with making sure that they double team him hard to get him pushed at the point of attack, but when that one guy wants to peel off and get down to the linebacker, that guy's so wide and so long that now he can't even get down to peel down because that guy can kind of control him. It's a little bit like when you get the defensive line holding calls that you rarely get at times. That's essentially what's happening, is where you're getting that nose tackle, trying to prevent that double teamer from climbing down to the second level. And it gets a lot easier to do if you have the width in there to do that with that guy who can just kind of lock out both linemen at once a little bit with his hands and allow his linebackers to run free and clear over on the backside. So Murphy's missing some of that width, some of that size in there that you would like to have. I've also mentioned this Dogzilla that last year he got injured doing what? 3-tech stuff? No. He got injured doing 1-tech stuff. And part of that speaks to a bit of his lightness at trying to do it at that position, at that size. So he's in there popped up, and here comes a block from the backside, pushes him and, you know, splits his hamstring on him. I don't think any NFL team, I can't undersell this enough, Dogzilla, no NFL team looked at Byron Murphy last year and said, if we're drafting him, he's going to be spending a majority of his time as a nose tackle. I'm going to say again, not one NFL team saw that with Byron Murphy's future. You see it as a guy who you play mainly at 3-tech, who gets a smattering of snaps over at the nose tackle position, not the opposite. And it's very important because we want to use these guys in the ways that they're best. But he played it like a league average rate for you as a nose tackle last year. He wasn't like a dominant, immovable nose tackle. It's like league average. That's what he kind of gave you over there. It was fine, but he could be dominant as a 3-tech. TNS Guy 20, thank you for subscribing to the channel. TNS, welcome aboard. Jessica Butler, thank you for the $2 donation. Jessica, super excited about having Kupp on our roster. Me as well. I'm hyped for this. I really am. I'm not expecting prime Kupp, but this helps the receiving core out so much better. This sets the stage here for your draft to be able to be picked better and to be picked to value better, so you're not reaching for that receiver need, especially in this weak wide receiver draft. And he just makes a lot of sense to fit into this offense in addition to it. I think he gives you at least some good functional play out there, productivity out there, and fitting purely to the offense and the skill set he brings, even wherever that skill set is out right now. And still not, 34, 35, 31-year-old guy. So not super old, Jessica. But I think by and large, most people are pretty hyped about what they're going to be getting here from Kupp. And you never know. Maybe he finds back that full health and gets a little bit of a rejuvenation. We've seen it before with wide receivers. Stale, thank you for the $2 donation. B, wide receiver Kyle Williams. Next, Tyler, Doug, underrated. Yeah, I do think Kyle Williams is a very underrated cat in this draft. I think I've got him. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a Paul Richardson kind of receiver, the former guy we had taken back in the day. He's not as slight as Paul, I think Paul was like a 170 guy. You know, this guy's a little more into the 185, I think, territory of where he plays at. But just has all of the nice natural components you look for with the burst, the speed, the route running, and hands. All these are just all above average across the board for him as a football player, I would say. Some surprising yak that just comes out of how fast he transitioned out of receiver to a running back or into a runner. He just catches the ball and it's in his grip and he's up the field, where sometimes receivers have to, you know, don't, and then they're, you know, able to then, it's like you can almost feel a full second beat before they're able to turn up field and go. He's got that just quick, easy way to do it. Well-timed leaps, great ball tracker. Part of the things that help him out with some of those hands is he just gets his hands in the right position to go make the catch. But I do think he's a little bit underrated in this draft. Yeah, I do. I think this kind of package tends to come in guys that are more like 5'9", 170 rather than 6 foot 190. And his testing times in the combine kind of confirm some of this stuff. Stale. So I like him a lot. I wouldn't take him as a wide receiver 1 type guy. I don't think that he's got even the Paul Richardson kind of place that we took Paul in the second round. I think that'd be a bit early for him. But early 4th round, like top of the 4th round, or maybe even late 3rd. But I would be a little nervous in the late 3rd, to be honest with you, because I think there'd be better value on the board at other positions at that spot. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation. Most drafts, after top 10 to 15 picks, next 30 to 40 guys typically could fall anywhere. So we should have 3 guys with first round grade talent. John, best in round 2. Could even get better than that, I would say to you, Randall. If I was to say my assessment on this, I think you're right in general terms that is the way that you tend to see NFL drafts work out. And that what you're talking about with those first 10 to 15 picks is especially blue chip talent. Not only first round graded guys, but guys that can be difference makers at the NFL level. This draft, unfortunately, and one of the reasons that so many people are bitching and moaning about it, is the fact that there are so few blue chip prospects in it by so many people's assessment. So for the consensus on this would put you about, probably instead of 10 to 15, you're maybe about 6 to 7 true blue chip guys. And then you have a stack of guys that I think when you say 30 to 40, to me, Randall, instead of it being 30 to 40, the upshot of having fewer blue chippers is that we have more of those guys than in that 30 to 40 range, where now that becomes more like 50 to 65 is more of kind of how it fluctuates in this draft. Because on top of having fewer blue chip guys, you have more guys in that 2nd to 3rd round range. One reason it's very good that the Seahawks have more picks in that spot of the draft. I've said that's where the fat, that's where the beef is in this draft. The other part that's really nice with this is, in addition to you having the most of the picks and where the beef of this draft is, being that the beef's not at those blue chip guys. There ain't Hall of Famers probably in this draft. But another uptick with this is that there's going to be such a difference of opinion from NFL evaluators of where these players land. So you talk about there being 3 guys with first round grade talent, Randall. We may be even finding ourselves in the 3rd round there with John, and he's got guys there where they may be having even potentially a first round grade at that spot. Maybe not quite to that place, but I just think the mock drafts through the first 3 rounds that people are going to try to be presenting, for instance, Randall, are going to be fool's gold, because it's going to be so wild to watch where different teams have different players slotted. And that unlike other drafts where I think there would be way more consensus in that 2nd, 3rd round, I think it's a bit of the Wild West in this draft, and that you don't really know what you're going to get where people are going to go. The grades, I think, because there's just less certainties, there's more of trying to look to projection than there is to looking to actuality of what you're getting. That then just leads to, I think, a real separation of opinion on these guys, which makes it more exciting, because all the more potential, to your bottom line point there, Randall, of being able to get a player that really good in a spot of the draft where you wouldn't typically be able to grab that guy. Northwest 12, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, I apologize for misgendering Pumpkin. She is good luck enough as she is. She's good luck enough as she is. Hail Pumpkin. Laugh it out loud. She doesn't mind. And to your credit on this, I'll say, Northwest 12, I've heard that only 4% of the orange cat population is female. So they tend to be, I think, 96% male. Is like 100%, 100% of the time. It works 50% of the time. One of those things. But she doesn't mind. She appreciates you noticing her. He's a very prideful girl in that way. Northwest 12. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate you. Adolf, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Adolf, appreciate you too. Thank you for jumping aboard the Hawks Nest. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $2 donation. Could this be an off-season, could this off-season be John's Rembrandt? Ooh, a little Renaissance era painting from John Schneider, Mark? Possibly could. You know, he's doing something that is not the easy route to go as a general manager. It's always the safer road to go with the devil you know and the players that you have in-house, and you get less blowback when you turn a lot of things over, especially a team coming off of 10 wins. They've shown a willingness here to be aggressive in a different direction than, and this is what's, I think, caught a lot of people out there so off guard this offseason, not myself on this, but from what I've taken from people and their reaction to some of this offseason, that they weren't expecting them to take this alternate road. And I think that if he had just taken the safe approach and gone down and done the straightforward thing everyone was expecting, Mark, it wouldn't have been that. It would have been, I don't know painters very well, but whatever a lesser painter would be beyond Rembrandt, you know, whatever be like a much downgraded step, like guy that's liked, but like, it's not, very much more of that. This has a potential to be that because you're actually shooting, to me, for contention. I think that as much as I understand people wanting so much the DK and Geno moves, and they may not like me saying this, and I would understand that, but it's just kind of my thinking on this is that I think you just kept going down the road you were going to go down. You had one of two realities that were going to play out from that. One, you're stuck in mediocrity, just missing the playoffs. Two, or you get into the playoffs and you don't do anything once you get into the playoffs. I think that was basically the long-term reality of what was going to happen if things just kept fitting to form. And this now gives you more of now the door of opening up the potential of getting to actual contention again. And that's one of the reasons I'm so behind this approach, is that that's where my eye is always at. Getting to being a team that just barely scrounges its way into the playoffs isn't worth a whole lot. I want to turn out the couch cushions to get in the playoffs and go, look, there's a successful season. I want to get out there and go make some noise again. It doesn't have to be a title every year, but at least let's get to a team that's driving towards that and that you can feel that. This does that, Mark. So it can become that. There's work to be done. There's a draft that has to be made. We have to see how it all fits together. We have to see the development come forward from the coaching staff, which has also been a missing element recently, but we are expecting. And if that hits, we could look at it back upon it, Mark, and very well, potentially say just that. Yeah. Well said. I love that. Randall, thank you for the $2 donation. Have Bradford play fullback, athletic dude. Am I crazy? I mean, who's getting in front of him coming downhill with a 5-yard head start, Randall? Got a 230-pound inside linebacker now facing 335 pounds of Anthony Bradford, angry like a bull moose, trying to drive you out of the hole. I think I'm making a business decision in that case, Randall. All I'm going to say on that. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $2 donation. B, the Bengals are 90% to give Chase money. Joey B is locked up. Yeah, I'm going to have to finally put away my Burrow dream, man. Many of you asked me to do it already, so I probably am overdue on getting this done as it is, but I've got to probably let that dream die. I once had a dream. I feel like Morpheus in the Matrix. I once had a dream. The dream is dead. Oh, well. But indeed, it sounds like Chase is going to sign the biggest contract for any player in the NFL, not quarterback related, up at $40 million. And, that's a lot of money. But they're overdue to do it, so they should have signed him last year, and they wouldn't have to be paying this much as it is now. Mark Coleman, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Mark, welcome aboard the Hawks Nest, and I do appreciate you for doing that. Jose, thank you for the $2 donation. Jose, Sports Talk with Jose Rodriguez is one of our moderators here on the channel, a longtime moderator on this channel, and he's also got a great channel that he's got cooked up on his side of things. So if you guys could for me too, if you get a chance, do sub on up there with Sports Talk with Jose Rodriguez. It says, what number does Kupp get? Not 10. I would think 10. He has had 18 in the past. Do we have a 10 right now? Yeah, you got Uchenna Nwosu's your 10 right now. So this could change. I think he started out his career with 18 with the Rams, Jose. So I would guess that if he's not getting the 10 number, that he probably goes back to 18. You know, Jose, the number 1 would go pretty hard on Cooper Kupp. 00 or the number 1 would be going pretty hard with Cooper Kupp. I'm just saying. But Uchenna's technically your 10 now, but maybe Kupp throws him 50K. He says, give me your number. But if not that, probably 18, Jose. Probably goes to 18 at that point. If Uchenna doesn't want to give his stuff up. CR says, hello from Germany, still awake at 2 a.m. This news keeps me awake. Ha ha ha. Good, man, it should. It's good news. And we haven't had always some good news in recent weeks. It's been sometimes some dark news out there a little bit. So got to celebrate the good when you do get the bad on top of it. So I'd love to hear that out there. Hope everything's going good with you out there in Germany. HHG, thank you for $2 donation. It says, Bosa punching air now that we have a white quarterback. This joke has gone on throughout the season and the off season. Oh, Lordy. Oh, HHG, all because of one Baker Mayfield missed tackle. All because of one little Baker Mayfield missed tackle at the end of game. We finally found Bosa's kryptonite. That's right. Give him the white quarterback and he's done. Like, uh-oh. I'm shutting down this week, coach. It's the hammy. You sure it's the hammy, Nick? Are you? No, it is. Is it really? Thanks, HHG. Appreciate you. Dude Moose says, what is Mr. Watkins' preferred number of dips? I want 2 dips. 3 would have been better. But 2's fine. As long as you jump once, no, none. I say, I won't do that. Watkins says no. Double dip, yes. 2. 2 starters. Good starters. We win now. Next year, linemen play. Older. Rookies, no. It'll only get you so far. They hit the wall. I'm telling you, it happens every time. The wall. Like Pink Floyd. I hear you. You like my walking? You digging my walking? Yeah. I know. I feel you. James says, unfortunately, I'm a Hawks fan in LA and my sons are Rams fans. Ooh, that's got to be tough, James. I'm sorry. Kupp is the best route runner behind JJ, period. He's a very good route runner. There's no doubt about that. That's how he makes his money. Enrique, we still need a third cornerback. I think they're probably going to go more as we go along through the alignment of this Enrique into the draft. There's certainly guys maybe down the line you can get with more value signings as we head into wave 3. So they'll probably be another vet they add too. But I would estimate tight end, cornerback, interior offensive line. These are more and more of the positions that you don't know where they're going to address them in the draft, but you do probably would come to believe that at some point or another they're going to come out of the draft with these positions selected somewhere. Thrill House, didn't Paul Richardson snap his ankle? Yeah, he did. But it was a little bit on the same thing that happened like with Tyler with I think, if I'm not mistaken, with kind of Russ on that, where Russ would throw that moon ball and kind of put it on the guy. And so they'd go up and then the guy would land on their leg. But Paul was a lot more slider too than Kyle Williams is. He was more thinner, more frail in his build. Kind of always had those injuries, was always dealing with it even in college, I believe. Justin said, I like Kupp on your team. Thank you, man. We're feeling pretty good about it. Dogzilla, but where did they choose to play Murphy this year? He looked good there, right? Not really, no. He was average as a nose tackle. So he wasn't like a dominant, immovable force over there. He wasn't above average there. He gave you league average play as a nose tackle, Dogzilla, which you shouldn't have to, for a league average nose tackle play for a devalued position such as that, you shouldn't have to give up a first round pick in the middle portion of the draft to get that as the return. AI says, yeah, Kupp absolutely outworked everyone first time I saw him. He just has, you can kind of sense that vibe on some of these guys when they have that in their repertoire. As there's just some of these guys that just don't have the will to take that work ethic that far. And you love it because, nobody can control whether they're born fast or slow or jump high or be strong or explosive or not. But to force it to kind of happen, to force yourself to be kind of that self-made player in that way is very impressive. Zombie Central Brando, after today, John has been regaining my trust. It's been a pretty good offseason so far. Not every player came our way, but we rebuilt our offensive line and quarterback room, and we're signing some O-line players. Yeah, I'm very much in favor of what's going on right now, and it starts with the whole beginning point, the match point of this, the striking point all in this is, what is your first pivot point going to be in an offseason? DK Geno. These are the two deals that you have to decide upon whether they're asking for trades or not. You were going to have to make a determination. And really that's where everything began then, from how smartly you put those two deals together and then what your next steps were beyond that, and whether or not it was going to be a good direction or a bad direction. And my outlook on it is that this is the right approach and this is the right direction. And this is the team self-identifying themselves appropriately where they're at. I know I hammer on this, but this is a big part of, for these people I'm trying to talk to, are those people that maybe not on as much on board or understanding what's going on. And this is one of my working theories, of course, pet theories, which is the teams are in 4 different states. Like water can find itself in 3 different states. An NFL team can find itself in 4 states. You're rebuilding, ascending, in purgatory, in between, or you are elite. You are a contender. Those are your 4 states. And the reason that I've come up with this theory is that my other theory in addition to this is that NFL teams that tend to be bad given years and year in and year out. You look across the board at why was this team bad this year? Why was that team bad this year? They tend to be bad, in my opinion, because they misidentify where they're at on that pecking order. We think we're elite, but we're actually in between. Should be rebuilding, but we're actually ascending, or ascending and we need to be going to the next stage of it. And the thing with this is that you don't go from ascending to purgatory to elite. It's ascending to elite so that you get stuck in purgatory. And so a lot of the driver of this offseason, I think, from this team standpoint, is shaking things up a little bit here. But I love their approach with the positions and the guys that they brought in here, zombies. It hasn't been an overpay. It hasn't seemed like a scramble. It hasn't seemed like you merely getting desperate for these positions to make it happen, especially when you look at the Darnold deal and how I think we're going to look at it as being pretty team-friendly in the grand scheme of things on this one into the future years of this. And DeMarcus Lawrence deal the same way. When you look at the bottom line numbers, and even after the numbers we're hearing with Kupp, I think when we see the final numbers and how they rest out on actual over the cap and where it's at, I think we're going to feel pretty fine about where everything stands on these deals and go, yeah, smart deal, good deal, smart deal, good with it. The identity, Dennis, I thought it was pretty funny there. The Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence tete-a-tete back and forth the other day. I'll let you see what the chat thinks about my theory on this. I posted it up on Twitter. But I think that Micah Parsons is projecting, is what I think is going on here. Because put yourself in the situation. He sees DeMarcus Lawrence, number one, go get paid and get paid early this offseason. Now with Parsons, he's going to get a bigger deal, but he knows Jerry Jones is going to hold out paying him until the 11th hour. So if he's going to get paid, he's going to have to wait all the way through this offseason to get paid. He knows he's on a team that's going nowhere, and that DeMarcus is speaking the truth there. And then you add on top of it that you have Micah with the quote that he had talking about Mike McDonald last year and some of his reverence for McDonald's defense. And you go, yeah, I think the envy was working the other way there, pal. I think it was going the other direction on that one. What you guys think about that, though? Dave Barclay, I subbed up on your channel the other day, man. Subbed on up. Nice little channel. Addicted. How can spending $15 million a year instead of on a guard a path to the future? Well, I think that Tevin Jenkins could end up being that guard you bring in. Double dipping would have been nice. That's for sure. But I was not as big on Will Freeze, for instance. There is some thinking out there that very well could be true. I don't know where I really stand on it, to be honest with you, but there's some thinking on it out there that maybe Becton, it wouldn't be as much of a good fit for this zone-based scheme. The team ran at Dahlman and tried to make that happen. Jenkins is a top 5 offensive free agent pickup for me in this situation. You know, that's as big a get as any guy that you sign this offseason. I don't care if it's your 5th signing or 4th signing, whatever. That is your big get there. And it's no small one at that. But you don't want to overpay for below average performance. That Will Fries deal was ridiculous. The Aaron Banks deal was ridiculous. I mean, these deals are beyond the Robert Hunt ridiculousness of last year. They're beyond the Damian Lewis ridiculousness of last year. And I wouldn't have wanted to go to that route of it. I would have been willing to certainly blow away the Dahlman offer with the Bears because they got away with a really under-edged deal there. It was very, very, in a lot of ways, friendly to them on that one. But the other ones have been okay, I think, for the most part. Freeze would have been a monstrous risk, and I'm not so sure he was all that great. Now, Ryan Kelly, I would have been on that one too. So when it comes to the center, I can certainly understand, definitely hold them a little bit over the barrel on that one, going, wow, you guys kind of didn't go as hard on this particular one. But I think that the other thing as well to consider with this Addicted to Hawks is that the numbers that come out with the Cooper Kupp contract right now are not the actual numbers. These are the agent's numbers. These are the agent's numbers. So let's see where the deal really sits at here when we look at the grand scheme of things of the cost, the price, what we're paying for. But I think it'll be good money spent when it's all said and done. There is obviously a risk with him. It depends on where his health is at for sure. But I don't think that we're going to look back at this and say that it's bad money spent. Dane, have we heard the actual contract details? Not what the agent fed reporters? Not yet. It's perfect timing, Dane. Just to my point, exactly. Can't let us get carried away with the agent numbers and what they're telling reporters. That's always what you're hearing when these first numbers come out. Give it that little bit of time, and then you'll come to see that the deal will look very reasonable for the Seahawks. Bunny says if they can work out a significant pay cut for Uchenna, I'm open to him making the team, but if he won't budge, cut his ass. We'll see how that plays out. Yeah. One of the next dominoes probably to fall here one way or the other, I would say, on that one. So we'll find out very, very soon here. Hawk's Eye View. Thank you for the $3 donation, Hawk's Eye View. He asks, what does Christopher Walken have to say about the Cooper Kupp signing? I have this to say to you, Hawk's Eye View. Interesting name. I'm a dancer. It's what I was. He says you're an actor. No, I dance. My feet fast. Could have been a football player, but I'm an artist. That's who I am. That's what I do. Cooper Kupp, the dancer on the field. That's what he does. Who he is. He goes down the field. He dances left. Right now, suddenly he goes. Where he at? I don't know where he went. Look, cornerback, can you find him? No. Oh, he's got a touchdown. How that happened? I don't know. Dancing. Sad happened. He's a dancer. Good one at that. Great signing by your Seahawks. Super Bowl bound. No doubt. I'm telling you now, Watkins says it will be done. He's hyped. He likes Cooper Kupp. He's a dancer. I love dancers. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $2 donation. Randall, can you look at the remaining free agents and released players? Yes. I mean, Kind of, yeah. We're gonna chew on this, Randall. I know I often say this on this, but I've got some plans on this night, what I want to be doing here a little bit later, so I'm not gonna go super deep on this one here a little bit this evening. In general terms, on kind of going too quasi deep into this kind of stuff a little bit. We'll come back on Sunday, and get it figured out. But I mean, in general terms, yes. Let's see if I can show it here. Sports Track doesn't really have it updated here, so I don't even know what site. It's kind of, that's where I'd like to try to do that offline and figure that out. So I have to kind of sit here and kind of piece around if I can. Yeah, Sports Track doesn't really have them listed out. They've got the guys signed rather than the actual ones that are still available there, Randall. Oh, wait, no, there we go. Okay. So yeah, I kind of run through these kind of quick, Randall, but like I said, too, with it, I kind of want to put a button on this. I got to get some dinner, and then I'm going to be streaming tonight over on the Twitch channel. So we're probably just going to kind of want to run through in and out today, kind of quick on this one. You know what I mean? Rodgers is the high value guy they got in the market available right now. So we can sort these out by kind of positions here. There's really, I mean, this is, you see why it's good with the Cooper Kupp situation, as there's just no wide receivers here, really, of any kind of note here. I mean, these are all just Jag type receivers. We've looked at maybe a guy like Elijah Moore would have been an interesting guy. It's not letting me market. Great site. Not much there for a wide receiver position, though. Kind of knowing there's a lot of older guys. Tight end. I don't even recognize a lot of these names tight end wise. You got Nick Vannett out there still, Irv Smith, Hayden Hurst. I don't think any of these guys would be real options, especially with having Fant still on the roster. J.D. Lewis is almost 41 years old. Yeah, I think we'll probably come back around. I kind of would want to, Randall, if I can, on that one. Let's double back around on that on a Sunday, because I'd like to better prepare up a board and have. I think what we'll do on Sunday show, Randall, is top remaining free agents at these positions, especially looking at it with alignment of where I want to try to pare the list away. Randall is trying to look at those guys that'll be more of the 1 year centric guys that John would tend to target at this wave 3 point of free agency. We're not quite there yet. We're just kind of starting to turn into that next, we're into basically wave 2, and we're just about to get into wave 3 here within the next day or two. But I'll try to put a list of, especially, looking to maybe more offensive line guys like, the Risner types that might still be out there available, as far as if you do want to double dip for something that's going to be a little bit more cheaper on top of doing a Tevin Jenkins signing. But I'll try to put together a couple of lists too, Randall, of guys that are more sectioned off, because it's a little bit just kind of a mess in there trying to parse through it right now with the guys that are there. They just got like the whole list is there, and I'd like to remove some of these names and go, here's the guys that are more viable, true options here. Snail, thank you for the $2 donation. Says D-Law already earned his contract with that interview. It was a very, very funny interview. Props to Brian Hawkblogger there, going a little viral with that one. Said dropping the dynamite and just stepping away on it, and like causing the big explosion. But yeah, funny moment. Cool quote. Hilarious situation to watch play out a little bit between those two guys. And Parsons is ridiculous. He's the one that didn't have to pop off about anything. It would a quote that would go completely under the radar. Maybe a couple Cowboy fans would say something about it on as far as content creators go, but it wouldn't really get the big pub it did. What blew it up was Parsons' reaction to it. You know what I mean? Dave Barclay, thank you for the $2 donation. As well, thank you, sir. Got some funnies I do daily now. Well, appreciate that. I'll check it out there, Dave. Awesome. Keep rolling on it, man. It's a lot of fun doing this. It really is. And the more you do it, to me, the more funner you have with it. So keep doing it up, bro. Keep doing it up. Thanks for letting me know about it. I'll keep checking it out over there. I'll keep checking it out. All right. So we will go a little bit longer here, get a last couple questions in, but I'll probably then start to put a button on this one here pretty shortly. Calvin says, we just got the mother effer Cooper Kupp, y'all. Now let's draft Emeka Egbuka, home to Tacoma, Washington native. What's your thoughts on him, Brandon? Well, I like Emeka Egbuka a lot. There's no doubt about that. He is a really good receiver in this draft. I'll show you here over my right shoulder. You can see in general terms round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of where I have these wide receivers positioned. And in Emeka Egbuka, I have him as my third highest graded wide receiver in this draft. He's just behind Matthew Golden. The issue comes down into on this, Calvin, on just kind of two fronts of this. The new offense that you're going to be running is going to be 12 and 21 personnel heavily laden, meaning that you're going to by often be either in 2 tight end sets or 2 tight end sets with a fullback. And so what this means is that that slot wide receiver is going to have less of an option of being on the field more than ever before. This does also mean that you're going to take a slot guy in Jackson Smith-Njigba and kick him now outside and ask him to win on the outside, which he's going to be able to do a little bit of when is not the centerpiece of his game, which is not the strength of his game. Emeka Egbuka is like Jackson Smith-Njigba, where he is a slot guy. That is what he does. That's what he's done in college. That's what he's going to do at the pro level. It's an important position. It's no shade at a guy to say you're only a slot guy. It's a specified position that's every bit as important as the X and the Z in this day and age. But you're not going to have 2 slot receivers, especially when you're in an offense that's not going to be living in spread concept formations. Some people on this that like to say a little bit, Calvin, where they go, well, Emeka was on the roster at the same time as Jackson Smith. So, they were out there able to play together before, so why not again? So, well, Jackson Smith was injured that whole season. He played like 2 games, and then Emeka replaced him in the slot duties throughout the course of that year remaining. So he's dynamic with the ball in his hands, runs as hard as any receiver in this draft with the ball in his hands, very strong hands at that as a catcher, understands how to sit down in space, sit down in zone, which is really a big thing you need for your slot wide receivers to have. He's got that dog in him. I love how he plays. He'll block, but he will be just a slot receiver at the next level. And I do have a second round grade on. But, James says Pats in Green Bay wanted to call for Kupp. Kupp says he wants to stay in the West Coast. That seemed to be a bit of the situation here. And how many times has it broken the other way, James? How many times have we had to see a really good player who just, man, I'm from the East Coast. I want to be back on the East. I want to be back home. Like, why can't we have any good Washington football players who want to come home? It doesn't happen often. So it feels good this time actually getting to get the benefit on, be on the other side of that one. Big Hawk says Golden or the Iowa State wide receiver. Ski or surf, Big Hawk. Ski or surf, man. You know what I mean? Both ways are going to have some fun with both those two guys. So I go either or. Golden's going to be the first round guy for me. Higgins more second round guy. But I think both those guys are going to be very effective players. Erickson says Cooper Kupp. The Lance is absolutely true about Parsons B. Yeah, it's like I saw the tweet and I was like, oh, he's bitter. He's a little bitter because Jerry's going to stretch him over the coals on this contract. Watch Jerry play with his emotions. Daddy Dennis, I was so happy when he called DeMarcus a clown. That's some fuel right there. Lauren's going to make him eat those words. Yeah, it was. He chose violence yesterday. Micah did. It's like, really, man? Holy jeez. Big Hawk, Jalen Knowles, another fun player. Got no problem going with him. Third round guy. Third, fourth round guy. He's good. Another dog. Dog. Yeah, Daddy Dennis, you're right. Kupp's better than Debo at this point. Debo's a lot more of a shot fighter. Big Dogs, Brandon, love you and your channel, but right now we have no guard. I can't find his $15 million loss a thing to celebrate. Just my opinion. It's fair enough. It's what I love about this channel is that we're going to have a lot of opinions in here, and that's what I want. You know, it's just like in the same realm. It's just my general opinion on it. I think that reacting to these numbers right now is a bit of a leap to a degree on this. And again, the respective Addicted to Hawks, that this is agent numbers that are being presented to you. And then every time that I see these agent numbers presented, I go back and see the actual numbers on the books, and it looks nowhere near as bad as it does at first blush when you might look at the numbers. But let's just say it is at 15 million just for the sake of argument, even. at that point of it. It's not bad money spent. There were certainly plenty of other teams in on the mix willing to spend this money, especially considering that there were so many teams who had had their cap space removed down over the past couple of days, and since Kupp just basically got released on that side of it. I've got no pushback to give as well against anybody saying we need to get these offensive linemen figured out, and we need to get a guard would have been, better money to be spending on and whatnot. But the lineman has to be available worthy of that $15 million contract addicted. And it's not like there was a slot of 10 interior guards worthy of a $15 million a year contract sitting on the table in front of you. And instead you bypassed that and went to Cooper Kupp. Trey Smith got franchise tagged. He was off the market. Could they have found some other guys out there and some other ways to do this? I mean, maybe, but again, too, we've got Teven Jenkins coming in for a physical addicted, and that doesn't tend to happen unless you probably have the framework of some kind of deal in place, pending the fact that his physical will look all right and look true. And then that contract's going to be very close to that $15 million a year one that you're kind of pining for. So you get satiated by the thing you're looking for at the same time you bring in a Kupp. I advocated for the double dip. I wanted to see the double dip, but I want them to be intelligent above wanting to see my individual moves being made for the team. You don't have to go down the road. I'm saying go down, just be intelligent in the road you're heading down. And I think these moves are intelligent. The price of receiver is this cost. There were we weren't bidding against ourselves on this one with Cooper Kupp, with just, with him and in space. There was other teams out there more than willing to bring him in at that price. And I don't think it's going to prove to be bad money taken out. But if you go get a Teven Jenkins and you go double dip in the draft with 2 interior high quality offensive linemen with all of the picks you have, you've brought this offensive line forward. And beyond specifically going out there and throwing money every which way it loose on the offensive line, I wanted the offensive line improved. And that can be done by going to the draft and doing some of that through free agency. It doesn't have to be one or the other, or that you had to hammer both in some major way to accomplish that. We just have to see how it will all play out. And if, they miss out on a Jenkins and then they don't address it in the draft and you come back with another offensive line in similar years. And like I've said in the past on this, if they took that approach, I would hammer John about that. But I don't think that they're taking that approach with it. And as I presented earlier in regards to Tevin Jenkins, this isn't retrospect for me with Tevin Jenkins. This isn't me like trying to make myself fall in love with Tevin Jenkins as a player. Tevin Jenkins was my 5th, as I'm showing here. He was my 5th highest rated free agent target for your Seattle Seahawks. Now, they haven't closed the deal on him. It's no certainty him coming in doing the physical is going to get that addicted to Hawks, but this was why I think this guy, signing him and bringing him in on top of the other deals, makes a lot of sense, and he solidifies the left guard position, and that is the big hole you have as you stand right now. Now, you go in the draft, you get another center, you get a high-quality right guard. Is that offensive line improved with the coaching then? Have you brought better talent in here at that point on top of it? Yeah. Could you have done more at that point? Sure, they could probably try to have done more. But again, coming back to the baseline of this, what I'd say addicted is that the market is the market of availability. And if there's only so few real true good offensive linemen out there that are worthy of these contracts, well, as much as anybody want to throw contracts, but I don't want to throw it out at just players that are middling guys. That was the whole thing of not being in on guys like, I didn't like as much the thought of Aaron Brooks. And if I had Aaron Brooks, I'd have more like a 3-year, $24 million deal, not a 4-year, $77 million contract. That would have been ridiculous money to spend. I would have hated that deal. Hated it. The Freeze deal on a 5-year contract for a guy that's played 4 games, that's more speaks to a desperation at that point than it speaks to the feeling of the team believing that this player is really quality and of worth of that contract. But I appreciate where you're coming from, and I always love the different opinions here. So I'll definitely push back on the way and have my opinion, but I love having the different outlooks here, Addicted. You know that. Who crazy? It's time for some new unis. Teams like Lions, Texans are changing their unis when they were heading in a new direction. That's this next year. I'd love to see it. Love to see it. Colby Jack, thank you for the $20 donation. Colby Jack, I appreciate you for that. Christopher Watkins staring Jenkins in the eyes, threatening him what will happen if he leaves the VMAC without signing a contract. Tevin Jenkins, sit down now. Sit, look at me here now. No, don't pay attention, Tevin, to the gun. No, don't pay attention to the bullets going in the gun. Don't watch that. No, Tevin, don't watch me now turn the safety off. No, it's not happening, Tevin. Just sit and wonder. Think about it for a moment, maybe. Oh no, Tevin, that's not the gun racking in your ear. No, I wouldn't do that to you now. Here's the contract, Tevin Jenkins. 3 years, $36 million. Fair. You got the back of a 50-year-old man. Nobody's going to pay for that ever, except us. Oh, look, my gun raises and points in your direction. Oh, how does it feel on your forehead, Tevin Jenkins? You're going to sign or not? Why you pee yourself, Tevin? Why the puddle, Tevin Jenkins? It stinks. You've been eating asparagus. It's been a long stream week. You sign the deal now, or you don't leave alive. That's the deal, Jenkins. Super Bowl or death. We ride or die here, literally. Thank you, Colby. Watkins not letting Jenkins get out the VMAC. That's all I'm saying, man. He's got to bring out the gun and load it, and, you know. I'll spin the barrel. Haven't you ever played Russian roulette? It's fun. Here's a contract. I'm going to spin the barrel every 10 seconds. You don't sign. Sign. Addicted Brandon, sorry, I'm not saying we pay $50 million for a guard. I'm just saying we did not use the $50 million on one of 2 guards. Now you say double dip in the draft. Schneider failed drafts in 10 years, huh? Okay. Well, we're now, let's not overstate our where things are really truly at. Schneider has failed 10 years of drafting is your standpoint of things. 10 straight years of drafting, or is that you overstating that to try to suit to the argument you're trying to present? And who is the guard that you're wanting them to have gone spent? I brought up specifics on this, and that's why I guess I'd like that next part of from your standpoint on this. If you could addict it, is you're saying you're lamenting that they don't spend this money on this guy. Who's the guy you wanted them to spend it on? Trey Smith is off the market. They tried to get in on that by all accounts, and we don't know this for sure, but they were in on trying to get Drew Dahlman. They weren't willing to give Drew Dahlman. They were willing to give Drew Dahlman more money than the Bears were willing to give. Ryan Kelly was the other guy we wanted him to get. 32, that's the one. Maybe you can rake him over the coals on that one, I suppose. But then who are the other guys that we're magically talking about that were available on the market that were going to be so much of tremendous players that they missed out on at $15 million price tag? You can't sell me on they're a better team with Aaron Banks right now. And especially understanding if Teven Jenkins comes in here, then that's the literal thing you're wanting they're going to then get. And this is one of the reasons why we don't want to necessarily react to the first 2-3 days of free agency and determining here's the finality of the team. You want to give it the full slate of time to see what the team becomes. I'm perfectly fine hammering John as we get into the season if he's not dealt with the offensive line, but I've been clear with it that I want to give the time for that to see what plays out on that. And I'm not going to jump the gun on this just because where we're at. And I think that there's a little bit on your part jumping that gun with it, where Teven Jenkins comes in on Monday. That's my 5th best free agent sign. That's a great guard sign. That's a former first-round pick. That's a true talent. That's a scheme fit. That's a guy that's 26 years old. I don't know who could be really, mad at that as a move then for somebody that wants the offensive line filled. And this is, I've also been very consistent in saying, Addicted, that this is a draft that's uniquely suited to have interior offensive linemen, especially in the guard, tackle guard, convert guys. There's a cacophony of them in the 2nd and the 3rd round, a glut of them. When in recent years we've had drafts like the one where there was Steve Avila and Osiris Torrance, where those are your 2 guards, and then it was a whole lot of nothing else beyond that. So this is a year where you actually have the depth there at the right spot of the draft where the Hawks have extra picks to go and do that double dip. You're not double dipping for reach. You're double dipping for what the value is there for you to grab. And the good news with this, of those 3 last drafts, which have been pretty damn solid, including one of John Schneider's best drafts ever by far, the draft that he double dipped on the offensive line, he did that early. The one he had the most success with Charles Cross and Lucas, you went first and third round, and you got him in the right value, the right spot. You double dipped. That was a draft where there was a little more strength at the tackle position than we had seen recently, and you benefited from it. So it's not me also kind of guessing this blindly, but me also basing this off of a recent history for a draft setting up in a similar fashion to go out. He's still got to land it, and I'm perfectly happy calling him into account if he doesn't land it. But I don't think that we just simply want to throw money for the sake of throwing money. And unless you've got a real viable example you can throw my way of something that was some real true blue miss, I can't, from my standpoint of it, really look at this and say that there's some big deal that they really hugely missed out on. Would I have liked gotten Ryan Kelly? Sure. Or Drew Dahlman? Yeah, absolutely. But we don't know the parameters at play with those 2 deals. And Kelly, as much as I do like him, is a 32-year-old player. So it's not you signing a guy going into his prime. It is you signing a guy kind of at the end of the road a little bit. And there's a good chance those guys can drop off. But I do appreciate where you're coming from, too. I think that's just my one thing I'd say is just give it a chance, give it maybe a little more time, see for sure. But if it is that way, I'll hammer him for it. I promise you that. I'm not going to dress it up. All right, brothers, DeMarcus Lawrence, Cooper Kupp. Wow, the Seahawks signed 2 of the best players in the NFL. Sincerely, the year 2021. Brandon, we missed out on the 4 guards above Jenkins on your list. Well, one of the guards we missed out on addicted to Hawks was Trey Smith. That was my number 1 free agent, and he became franchise tagged. So then it's the other 3 players that I had on my list ahead of him. So I had Ryan Kelly. We missed out on him. I lamented that part of it. Micah Becton. There's some question as to whether Micah Becton is a true fit for this zone scheme or not. And I think that those are valid to bring up. I don't have one real strong opinion on that or the other, but I'm completely open to that being part of what's driving their thinking process as to whether or not to go after Becton or not. Certainly doesn't seem like there's been a very big market for Mekhi Becton. And the other guy was Drew Dahlman. So as I said on this, you're coming down to kind of just 2 guys here really at the bottom, not 3 guys on the bottom list and these guys were all charted together. And if you get down to the bottom line of it, the only reason I had Tevin Jenkins below those other guys had to do with some of the health related concerns with him. As far as ability and production of what you get on the field, he is a better player than Mekhi Becton. He's a better player than Ryan Kelly. It is just down to a little bit of that health standpoint. So they were all very closely aligned. It's not like one was way up here and way more valuable than this guy here. It was like those guys were really, it was as much the important thing for me, Addicted, as I said at the time doing the free agent show, that you're getting somebody from this chunk. I'd love to get a double dip from this chunk, but at least get something from this small chunk of free agent interior offensive linemen that were available. And they appear to be maybe doing that. Now they got to land, like I said, they got to still land it. I'm not blindly giving them the benefit of the doubt on this. They still have to get this thing accomplished. But if they did, then they are doing, again, back to what I was advocating for before we got into free agency. And it's one reason why I'm supportive of it now. Dogzilla can imagine possible run blocking improvements with a different scheme. What about pass pro, which these guys also sucked at? Yeah, you'll get both that'll have improvements. The inability of defenses to predict what the play is prior to the snap at a more often basis is going to be highly driven up. That hurt both your ability to run block and pass protect. Less of the 7-step drops, less time than those offensive linemen are going to have to block for so long. I don't know how many times they dropped into 7-step concepts against teams they had no business doing that at all against. Say nothing of doing a lot of it. A high frequency of it. Robs, thank you for the $2.79 donation. He says, petition to have the retro to be the main unis. I think I moved to have that possession. I've moved to have that petition forwarded on. I think everybody in the fan base would be in favor of it, Robs. I can't imagine how, even if they're not just going to take the old style purely and they want to update it to some degree, but just try to run with it as much as you can because it looks so good. And it's not just us local fans that like it. You hear nationally how much people like that uniform. I second that. I second that nomination, Robs. Thank you for the donation. Mark Sanchez, thank you for the $2 donation. Why you pee yourself? I spit out my drink with that. Hey, you got to bring out the big guns to get Jenkins signed, man. Whatever it takes at this point. It's getting lean. It's getting lean. Miguel Dahlstrom, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Miguel, welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. And folks, do if you can for me, please hit that like button. Sub up like Miguel has. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to get there this off season if we could. And Miguel's helping us get there a little closer today. So thank you for that, Miguel. Peter Van Gent, thank you for the $5 donation. Get Jenkins. Nail these day 2 picks. Save a little something for midseason fire sale. Let's go. Let's go. What's the term that John likes to use? The old Ted Thompson quote that he likes to reference often. Keep your powder dry so that you can add to the team at any time of year, and I'd expect them to do that. I would expect them to have money to spend in that back pocket. The other thing that they do have at that point, if they want to there, Peter, I think, is still some more levers that they can pull from contractual bases if they needed to free up some more space if they find themselves in the thick of things next year. You know, you can just kind of play it by ear a little bit in the moment, but get Jenkins nailed out here. To the urgency that Addicted talks about here, I do agree with them on this. There's urgency to this. Get this deal done. Spend even a little bit more money than you feel maybe comfortable spending on the deal, but get this thing knocked out. This just sets the stage up so much more nicely versus you missing out and then being wholly driven at that part to hit the draft early and hard as far as interior offensive line, which then we're back to picking for need, and picking for need is never a good thing. So I love your outlook on it, Peter. I share that outlook on it. Get this Jenkins deal done. Hit those day 2 picks. This is the right spot of the draft to be picking that many times versus trying to pick multiple times in the top 10, where you pick multiple times in the top 10, you're hoping we got 2 potential Hall of Famers in a good year of a draft. This is a year of the draft where you're going, we're getting 2 really above average players probably with these 2 top 10 picks if you were in that place. But you get to be on the other side of it if you find yourself in that second, third round place where these guys could turn into being those kind of players. It's just a little bit of them not quite being at that place in their development, or they've got that ceiling that they tease, like a Shamar Stewart, Nick Imawari type, but they haven't quite gotten there yet. They may not get there, but they do offer that potential with them too. That's the key, man. That is the key now, Peter. Absolutely. Addicted, Brandon, you just said Kelly was a possibility. Regarding 10 years, who are the guards that have been a success on this team except for Damian Lewis? You commented on this many times. Well, I said Kelly was on my list of guys that they would look to target. We don't know how interested Kelly was to come here versus Minnesota. Again, for instance, one of the guys on my list, Drew Dahlman, didn't want to come here. We offered him more money, right? So like, you offered him more money than the Bears were willing to offer. You wanted him to come here. He wanted to go somewhere else. This is where we come down to, like, we can want something to happen from our perspective of things, but there's got to be a lot of other things in alignment with that to make it happen. Who are the guards who've been a success on this team? The team hasn't had a good amount of success when it comes to this team, Addicted Hawks. But what I'm purporting to say they would go down the direction of doing is bringing in a guard in Jenkins, who's coming in on Monday. I'm not stretching on this one, Addicted. He's coming in Monday. So there's really good. I'm not saying it's a 100% chance he gets signed, but there's a much better chance at this point he's getting signed than not, being that he's coming out to Seattle to take that physical, which is kind of the last point of the process to get it. And he's a high-end upgrade. This would be the best left guard signing for a free agent signing we've had, Addicted, going back to I can't even think myself. This is better than Robert Gallery. He's a better player than Robert Gallery was coming from the Raiders. So it's, at the very least, you're going back to getting a guy that's that legitimate for the position. You've not targeted anybody else in that time in free agency. And when it comes to the draft and talking about Damian Lewis, the team's not drafted guards. That's the thing I lament with this Addicted to Hawks, is the fact that they don't put the actual draft capital into getting him. They try to get these late round guys more often than not. Maybe they'll go as high as a third rounder like Damian Lewis was, like Christian Haynes was. but they don't go early enough, often enough on that stuff. It's always these later round guys that they're picking from, and that's been a big driving force for why the guard position has been so bad, is you haven't put the investment in it either by free agency or early draft picks. Neither of those two have been a button that you've decided to push. Now what they're on the edge of doing is signing the biggest free agent contract they've ever signed for a guard here, beyond what they gave Gallery by far, of course. But beyond that, getting a better player than what they had from Gallery. And then I can't even go back in my history books. Mike Whale from Carolina Panthers, maybe we signed to a contract back in like 2003 or something. I mean, that's how far you'd have to go back to see a time when Seattle actually spent some money on a guy that would be equivalent to what this signing would be with Jenkins. And then on top of that, you come into this draft and you make a second and third round pick at this interior offensive line, a point of emphasis. That's far and away above anything else you've done in the last 10 years as well, as far as investment goes. So on both accounts, the team is coming much more forward than they have been in those prior years you're referencing. And that's why I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt on this one, if it works out in this way. If it goes in this direction, not works out, but goes in this direction. Lord Bravo's just hopped on. I have to say that this offseason thus far has been as compelling as the actual football season. It has been pretty on your edge of the seat kind of situation, hasn't it, Sealord? Yeah. It ain't boring, whether you like these moves or not. You can't say it's been boring. That is for sure. Yeah, I don't want action green anymore either. I'm with Dan Lowe on this. No more action green. War Chief, how you doing, man? Sealer to Bravos, I don't know much about Jenkins, why the Bears dump him. It's, I think, a little bit of the concerns about that injury stuff with him, where he's not a guy that misses half a season, but he's been a guy that every year has had, 3 or 4 games a year he's going to miss. But to me, even if we get 13 games of well above average league play at the left guard position, I'm perfectly fine paying the price that we're thinking he's going to get paid, which is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 years and $35 million, I would think. So that's why they moved on from him on that, but it's not, when he's on the field, he's been a really good player. The Ronz's D. Eskridge resigned with Miami. Boy, was that fun. Yeah, it's kind of surprising to see him resign there, as he couldn't. Well, I don't even know if he was active at any point last year, past a couple games. I kept looking for him out there when I saw the Dolphins play, and I didn't see him. Kind of weird. Daddy Dennis, love action green. You know who else hates action green? The rest of the world. I can't do it. It's too much. Howie, our Bears. Hey, y'all, I'm a lifelong Bears fan. I can fill you in. Yeah, give us the inside goods. Tevin's actually a Pro Bowl right guard. He's a people-moving run grader, physical fighter, and keeps improving at pass pro. Well, that ain't going to get us any less hyped over here, Howie, our Bears. There we go, man. He's legit. Left guard, on guard, just give us a starter, give us a good level of play, and let's roll, baby. Let's roll, baby. We're getting a lot of action, love green in the chat. Ugh. Y'all that love it. I'll give you that. Y'all love it. No doubt in that part of it. All right. Well, we are going to put a button on this one, as I need to get some dinner. And I'll be back tonight here streaming over on Twitch. So if you want, you can sub up to me over there. I'm the TheSeahawksNest on Twitch, or you can click the link down in the description section below. But I'll be over there tonight. We'll be back maybe on Sunday. do a little bit more of this discussion here, as I know we're kind of routing this up as well on that. Addicted to, just want to let you know too, definitely appreciate where you're coming from on this. I don't want to undersell the fact that to the folks out there disappointed what they're seeing, I get completely where people are coming from looking at this thing with the offensive line right now, and they're nervous, and it's right to be nervous and right to be disappointed with how this thing's been run, and it remains to be seen, and they don't necessarily just get the blind benefit of the doubt that they're going to get it fixed. So I'm thinking this is going to happen. Tevin's definitely takes this a long way, just almost on himself in certain respects. It's not just a fix in itself, but it does free you up in a major way. But I do like what the moves this teams have made and what they're doing here. These contracts are not back-breaking contracts. You're getting great locker room guys. You're getting leaders. You're getting dogs on the football field. You're getting guys that fit to this scheme. Familiarity here, I think, and what you need to do and how you need to use them. Kupp goes from one system to another system that's like DeMarcus has his background with Dirty there and how to use him right. That's going to come forward as well. You love how the edge crew looks right now, especially be able to get Derek Hall out of the run stuffing duties and more into being just kind of a pass rusher specialist. I think that might be more of what he's best fitted to do. Not that he can't be a decent player on that side of it, but just that this sets that up on that. But I like where they're going. I like the team they're building here. I like the shakeup. That's what this needed. One step back, but 2 steps forward. And 2 steps forward doesn't have to necessarily mean to 26, as I've been saying. 25 is always a possibility here. It's especially with the schedule, third place schedule we're going to be facing in the upcoming season. But it is just about, I'm okay if it does take to 26 with them taking this approach on this, if this is what this bears out to, because I think the shakeup is going to be for the benefit of this team. It doesn't guarantee success in the future. There are no guarantees in the NFL. There's always a roll of the dice, a luck of the draw. But you can try to intellectually build up a variety of different moves and practices and philosophies and coaching to get yourself to push that luck into one direction or the other. And the Seahawks, in my opinion, are doing that down the line here in recent history with moving on from Carroll as they did, going to more of the cutting edge coach, to changing up some of their draft designs in the last 3 years to more of a value-based model rather than a need-based model. There's still more here that needs to be improved upon their past approaches to things like this offensive line, which is a valid thing to pick at and poke at 100%. We'll see if that's the next part of this that does drop, but it does make me feel good going into the weekend that we got Teven Jenkins coming in on Monday, probably to take a physical. I'm making a big guess on this one, but I'd estimate that you have the framework of a deal in place, and as long as his back doesn't look like it's fused at 5 different locations, you'll get the contract done. I thank you guys for watching today. We will be back very soon. This show was brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Use my code today, NEST, on Underdog Fantasy today, and they will match you up to 2-to-1 on your percentage of code. And it's 100%, but it's actually 2 for 1. So $200 down, $100 back, $500 down, $250 back. You can get in some daily fantasy leagues in either basketball, baseball's coming out. Put some parlays together. Go make yourself some money. Use my code today, NEST. But thank you, Underdog Fantasy, for sponsoring the show. I appreciate you guys watching today. If you could do me a favor on the way out the door and slam a damn ding-a-ling-dong that like button, as it does help this channel grow and shows me up on the algorithm out there. I really do appreciate the lively discussion today, as ever. Howie R. Bears, thanks for hopping on in here, man. Steve Hutchinson was your last good offensive guard. Certainly, Howie, our last good pure left guard. We had a guy for a while in the 2010s that was okay, Carpenter. He was kind of like an average guy, but a guy of any kind of significant impact, a guy with at least anywhere close. And certainly Hutchinson was beyond Jenkins. He's a Hall of Fame talent. I think Jenkins is just a really good player as long as his health holds up. But this is how far you'd have to go back to find a guy that was as somewhat way more good, better, but it just shows you how kind of, I guess, the bottom line of this, how I'd be in of how thin the position's been for us going on like 2 decades, how hard it's been to find this left guard. And now we haven't always tried our hardest to fill the position. We try to get by with secondhand parts, and, before NFL Sundays, we go out there to the, secondhand stores and picking through the clothing and looking in cabinets for a lineman that might work that week. It's kind of been our way a bit on this too. Can't deny that as well. Thank you for the $50 donation. And you're finishing us off right on a great positive note, but you're also reminding me of something I wanted to show here too. Because let's get people a little hyped, right? As we're walking out the door, let's get them feeling pretty good about things. Because I like what the team's doing. I want you guys feeling good overall on this. So me coming in with a big fat $50 donation. I want to thank you for that, Me. You are tremendous, as you have been lately. Just absolutely just awesome. So much lately on all the donations. I really do appreciate you for that. And me, of course, is talking about us going to Sizzler. And why is he talking about us going to Sizzler? Why is he mentioning us going to Sizzler? What could be, causing this? Could be if I could bring it up here. No, that's not it. That's not it. Well, I can find the thing. Too many things. Too many things. Oh my gosh. There we go. So here is your draft picks as it currently stands for your Seattle Seahawks. Look at all these picks. Look at all those picks. That's what me's talking about. He says, I'm going to go get me some Sizzler. He says, I'm going to give me some Sizzler. You got a first round pick 18, 50, 52, 82, 92, a fourth rounder, 2 5s, 2 7s, more picks in the top 100 than any NFL team. What's me talking about? What's me talking about?
And me being as broke as I am, I'm about to find a way to treat my alignment to Sizzler.
Go with Sizzler. We go with Sizzler.
This draft, baby, we going to Sizzler. We going to Sizzler. That's right. We going. We eating good this draft. We're eating real good this draft. And because John's getting that good work done, that God's good work done this free agency, it's going to look all the tastier. I thank you, me, for that big fat $20 donation. And there is no doubt we will be going to Sizzler on draft day. And if we can get the Jenkins thing hammered out, a couple of other back end deals figured out, we walk into this draft with house money, baby. We go any way we want to go, do whatever we want to do. And we don't have to apologize for it. But we are definitely going to Sizzler. And we're eating right. Get hyped, my people, whether it's this year or into the future. I believe in the direction of this team. I believe brighter days are ahead. I believe we've seen the darkest of the night, and the dawn is approaching. I thank you for watching today. Me, I thank you for the $50 donation. I think that my team is operating intelligently, and I thank you guys for the great discussion, agree or disagreement. I love the great discussion that we can always count on here. You're tremendous, me, for all of your donations you've dropped recently. And I thank you guys for all of the many donations today again on the stream, as we have been live, I think, about 5, 6, 7 times this week. You guys have brought that kind of love every single time. It ain't a requirement here, but it is definitely much appreciated. All of that type of support you guys bring, because it's here every time I go live. I thank you guys. Much love out to you guys as well. You have a great Friday night. See what our Seahawks do next. Tevin Jenkins coming in on Monday. Maybe we'll be live on that day if we get some breaking news coming on down. Maybe this Sunday. We'll just have to see how it goes. I do thank you for watching. Back very soon. But until next time, please don't you ever forget. And me, thank you again for that double donate. Thank you for all those donations, man. But don't you ever forget, my peoples. Please, my God. Go Hawks.